opposed, none opposed. We have the one rise and report. Can I just get someone to move the rise and report? Moved and seconded. Just for those knowing, we always, this is the process by which things that are in camera get brought into the public realm. So this happens at the start of all of our meetings. If we have anything to report, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. We move on to Mayor's remarks. I will start by just saying, go Canucks go. I'm very excited about this time of year. Also, happy Earth Day. This is always we had a very beautiful day to celebrate Earth Day today. I'm going to just let people know we're going to have a slight change of process here tonight. I'm going to try something in which we're going to take somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes at the end of each hour. Hopefully we won't have too many hours in this meeting, but just to get a sort of regular piece where we just stand up, stretch our legs. I think it'll make for a healthier audience and members of council. So not a long break, but just a way to just kind of get circulation moving. In terms of recent activities, I had actually almost all of council was able to go to the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Conference last week, which is a area where we undertake some learning, but also attend resolution sessions, which helps guide requests up to the province in terms of policy changes and pieces. So I appreciate everybody's sort of active participation in that. I think we all got something valuable out of that conference. I also had the honor of attending the BC Association of Police Boards Conference, which is an annual conference for police board members, where we undertake some learning around effective police governance and understanding many of the very substantive changes that are happening in policing almost on an hour-to-hour basis, it seems like these days. So I was there for a few days just prior to the AVICC conference here in Victoria. And I'd just like to thank this Vancouver Police Department, who was the host this year. I want to just acknowledge and thank the Community Association of Oak Bay. They held a dementia talk last Thursday, April 18th, over at Windsor Pavilion. Those kind of small community-led discussions that help raise awareness and knowledge and just really add a lot of value. And I just want to just express our thanks to Community Association for that. Some upcoming items that are people should be aware of. One is the long-awaited, although probably not probably hoped for, but event or activity is the Uplands sewage separation in the Humber catchment area is starting in the next couple of weeks. That's going to start. You'll start seeing big trucks and pipes and things being laid out, and a lot of disruption. The nature of the game, we'll do everything we can to avoid it, but just a heads up that will be starting in the next couple of weeks. If there's anything we can do to improve communications, please let us know. We have the Carnarvon Park survey. We had a great open house last week that had, I think, over about 240 people come out. But there's also a survey online available for people, so online and in paper. So that's open until May the 10th. You can find that, like most of our public input, at connect.oakbay.ca. There's an upcoming event called Camas Day, which celebrates the wonderful biological diversity of our natural parks, both here specifically in Oak Bay, but more generally around the region as well. So both, so obviously Camas, but also the biodiversity of flora and fauna. And then we have probably the biggest piece, which is we have housing engagement. So as most people are aware, there's been a number of legislative changes at the province that impact the types of housing and the scale of housing that will be allowed. So there's been a lot of questions from the public on what that means, and we're going to have some pieces coming back to council. So there's a virtual open house coming up this Thursday on April 25th. There's also 2 in-person open houses on May 1st and May 4th that will allow for people to just, it's really more of, those are really intended to be educational about what some of the drivers are, the requirements and some opportunities that we have within this process. And then there will be a town hall as part of a committee of the whole on Monterey Centre on May 6th. We anticipate there'll be a lot of interest in this topic, so we're going to have that discussion in a larger venue. So those are the upcoming dates that I think people should be aware of, and with that, ready to move on to the balance of the meeting. We start next with public comment and question period. This is a section of the meeting in which we have up to 30 minutes, but up to 3 minutes per speaker. People online or in person can raise their hands. If you're online, please raise your hand now. If you're watching the live stream and you're calling into the 1-855 number, please call in right away and hit *9 to raise your hand. And this is items that are not on the agenda. So if you wish to speak to something that's on the agenda and subject to public input, this is not the right time. But it is if you are looking to speak generally about items that are not on the agenda but are of general interest to Oak Bay, this is the opportunity to do so. We don't have a large in-person audience here, so I don't anticipate a huge stampede to the front. But if there's anybody in person here who wishes to come forward on things not on the agenda, I see one hand raised online. You can unmute yourself. The process here, of course, you're quite familiar with this, Mr. Zhelka, assuming it's you on the other end of that, is to state your name, your municipality of residence, and then you have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, it's Eric Zhelka calling in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Mr. Zhelka, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair, and welcome to you, and thank you so much. My name is Eric Zhelka. I live in North Henderson, part of Oak Bay. Hello, city fathers and mothers. It's good to chat with you and appreciate the opportunity to speak to council. My comments today have to do in particular with, let me congratulate you, first of all. I do note that Oak Bay, on your own website in the sustainability area, as of 2016, Oak Bay went greenhouse gas negative. Well done. I just want to say 165 tons of CO2 squared equivalent was made available to the public and to take down the rest of the district. 2019, minus 423 tons of CO2 equivalent was taken out. Well done again. And I do note that some of the work done later on was to make that negative even greater. Well done, everyone. So we are well on our ways to doing our part to saving the environment. I wanted to also point out that there seems to be a fair bit of talk about bike lanes. I don't want to get into bike lanes because that's later on in the agenda, but I want to talk about terminology. I would really wish, with respect to active transportation, we could start talking about these as shared use lanes. There's an intention, it seems, to pour lots of concrete and make very, very protected space, possibly for small children to ride bicycles in these spaces that are being taken away from the roads. But I imagine there's going to be wheelchairs in there. There's going to be scooters in there. There's going to be four-wheeled bicycles and quadrupeds. Who knows? All sorts of other things. And these kick scooters. Could we please start calling them shared use lanes to make it very clear that even people in walkers and wheelchairs are welcome in these lanes, since they're being to be so protected. And as you know, our sidewalks are practically impassable for anyone in a wheelchair or a walker. So I already see most of these people in wheelchair and walkers on the road anyway. So thank God we're pouring concrete. So let's just simply call them shared use lanes, please. That would be my suggestion to council. Number 3 is, I heard rumor that there's discussion of taking down maze gates. I know that's not really on the agenda for today, but I want to talk about it. If you're going to potentially take down maze gates, that's going to potentially be opening up the creation of conflicts between pedestrians who are currently in an exclusive pedestrian walkway zone to pedestrians with bicycles and other wheeled instruments that can now get through the maze gates. So it's only fair. If you're going to allow bikes into the pedestrian zones, then make sure that pedestrians and 100% of Oak Bay residents can get access to these shared use lanes that are being currently referred to as bike lanes. So thank you very much. Talk to you later.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhelka. I don't think I have to add too much to that, but you are, to the speaker's point, we are looking to remove the maze gates wherever possible. They prove to be quite a blockade for people on cargo bikes and other forms of transportation. So that is a project that is moving forward. However, they are subject to engineering design to make sure that they don't add any danger, say people running through them and onto traffic. So there is, just so you know, it's not just being taken out, they are being taken out with thought. Any other members of the public who wish to address council on items not on the agenda? Please come forward. Can you push the button on the microphone?
I'm Peter de Groot. I live at 3561 Redwood Avenue. It's in North Oak Bay, North Henderson, close to the intersection of blah,
Just
blah.
Oak Bay is fine, Mr. de Groot.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm here to plead one more time that you do not make a decision to change the current policy about the no parking.
So we can take that when that agenda item comes up, which is very shortly. It's going to come up in just a few minutes.
Okay.
So we'll take public input on that particular item because it is an agenda item.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll deal with the public input at that time. I'll make
Thank
sure
you.
I catch your eye, but don't go away because it's not very far away.
Okay.
Thanks. Any other members of public? I don't see any call-ins and I don't see anybody else online. Nobody else in the room. All right, I think we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is section 7. One of the rare items that doesn't have public input on it, but is really just a report for our information. Mr. Green, welcome to the meeting. And for those at home, Mr. Green is our Deputy Director of Community Building and Planning. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, members of Council. This report before you this evening is the Period 1 reporting on the District's housing target order. Council will recall that on September the 23rd of last year, the District received a housing target order from the Ministry of Housing that requires us to try and achieve a net new dwelling units of 664 units over the next 5 years by September the 28th. As part of that housing target order, there is certain reporting that the Ministry of Housing expects from the District, and Period 1 covered October the 1st to March the 31st of this year. And so this report sets out the targets and performance indicators that the Ministry of Housing has requested, and requested that the form be completed that they recently sent to us be completed, and the Council must receive that report within 45 days of the reporting period following March the 31st. And so the report needs to be with the Ministry of Housing by May the 15th and also posted on the District's website. There is one correction in the report form that I wish to correct this evening. So I did notice that in section 5, approved development applications, which is basically it talks about new units approved through development applications, including rezoning, development permits, building permits. That is new units and not net new units. And so there is a no in that calculation in relation to building permits, where we receive 13 building permit applications. And so the number of units should be 13 rather than 10. And that total should equate to 48 units. And that is of page 5 of the progress reports form. And so just to be clear that section 5 is talking about new units and not net new dwelling units, which the rest of the report talks about. Yeah, happy to answer any questions that Council may have on the report.
Sure, thank you. Our duty here today is to officially receive it, but if there's questions, this is an opportune time to do so. Councillor Patterson, Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and to staff through you. Thank you very much for the report. Nice to know that all the dates are set and we will be getting this information. I do notice, though, that in the reporting there is also rental units by affordability. And I know that that's a subject that has not been clearly defined at this point in time, what that means. But I am wondering if staff could provide some comments on what may be reported to council as time goes on, how if there's a method that we will be using to track the affordability actually as these move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Green.
Yeah, through the worship, to answer Councillor Patterson's question, yeah, as I guess in theory, if, say, a rezone application is accompanied by a housing agreement bylaw, and within that housing agreement there is certain provisions in terms of rental affordability, whether those units are going to be rented out below market rent, then we would be able to count those numbers. I have also made inquiries with the Ministry of Housing to make sure that, say, under the secondary suite rental program that the Ministry of Housing is running in relation to whereby homeowners who are building a secondary suite, and provided they meet the requirements of that loan, then we have been inquiring as to whether we can understand whether there's any secondary suites within Oak Bay that have been successful in applying for that secondary suite grant, so that we could include that information in this reporting. It's my understanding from those inquiries that there isn't any currently any way of sharing that information with us, but the province did ask us to make that known in our reporting form, that we wish to see share information or insights as to where we think there is some data gaps, and where the province may be able to help us fill those data gaps with, for example, that understanding how many secondary suites the province has provided loans to help construct those units.
And is that request in the in the document going to them, just for confirmation for the public's
is,
knowledge?
yeah,
Yes, it is. Sorry, I'm asking it more rhetorically, just so that the
Yeah.
public can know that it's in there.
Yeah, I think
Yes, it's sufficient. We'll just move
yes,
on, I think.
for sure they put
thank
it
you.
in the report as to other actions,
Yes.
so that to try and identify where we
Yep.
think there's a need for better data from the province on some of these issues.
Perfect. I have Councillor Green, then Smart.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Mr. Green. Thank you very much for the report. And I just noted on page 5, I believe it's page 3 of the report, there is a statement that we are not on track to meet this year 1 target. And I'm just wondering, do you have any idea what the repercussions of that are at this point? Do we know what the province will do in the case of a municipality being unable to meet the target? Thank you.
Mr. Green?
I'll try and answer that. Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of the province. Obviously, there are certain parameters, I guess, in the Act which allows the ministry to take certain actions if the Ministry of Housing doesn't believe that the district is making sufficient progress to meeting its housing target order. Those include the ability for the province to issue permits that they weren't able to do so prior to this Housing Supply Act legislation. They can also appoint advisors to come in and inspect our records to determine, again, also to determine what improvements should be made. So there are certain provisions within the Act, whether the ministry would follow through on those actions. If they feel that we're not meeting those actions, will be obviously remains to be seen, really. What we are trying to do in this report is, whilst we may not be on track, we're obviously trying to demonstrate to the ministry that we are taking, we might not be achieving those net new units, but we are taking action on in relation to our regulatory framework, to update our regulatory framework in terms of updating our zoning bylaw to allow SMU, undertaking an OCP review post-July, as well as undertaking a housing needs report later this year. And so we are trying to show that we are making those changes, and particularly in those areas that the district is in control of.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor.
Thank you.
I think it's worth pointing out, particularly for the public, that those numbers that are in there are for occupancy, so they're built and occupied. So obviously nothing that started within the last 6 months is going to be built and occupied. That was anything net new from a policy perspective. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. And I do want to acknowledge how heartbreaking the number 7 net new units is for our residents who are struggling with housing options right now. So I just want to say that out loud and acknowledge that that is a heartbreaking number. And I know that we are doing immense things you're doing immense things in the planning department to solve this problem. My question is around, through you, Chair to staff, is there anything else innovative we should be doing? Like, for instance, if we prioritized review times, and I'm not sure what those review times are right now for building permits, rezonings, development permits, if we prioritized the applications that had net new units above those that did not, do you think that would make a difference at all to acquiring units sooner in Oak Bay?
Mr. Green.
Through your worship, obviously on the planning side of things, as mentioned in my a report a few weeks ago on the delegation of development variance permits and development permits. The main roadblock that we have to prioritising or processing, particularly rezoning applications, is it comes down to the fact that we only have one planner who deals with those types of applications. And so as soon as we receive 2 or 3 of those applications, that planner is essentially overwhelmed or has to prioritise which applications, which then that person is unable to prioritise pre-application applications to ensure that there is sufficient rezone applications coming down the pipeline. So obviously that will be addressed in due course once we have a new OCP and we pre-zone to try and avoid the need for rezoning applications. But that's probably currently the biggest roadblock that they have in terms of rezone applications and subdivision applications, that we only have one planner who processes those types of applications. And so for example, the last rezone application that came before council, 2199 Lansdowne Road, that was a 14-month process, but some of that was because we only have one planner who has the ability to process those types of applications. On the building permit side of things, whether Andre, who deals more with the building inspectors, wishing to comment on that issue, but that is potentially a policy decision that we could make, is that we prioritise certain applications which do result in net new dwelling units, or that those that don't is always there is that policy decision to prioritise resources to those applications that do result in net new dwelling units rather than those that don't.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I might go to Mr. Boel. It may be worthwhile just commenting on, obviously, there's a secondary stream here of an efficiency work going on within the department. And Mr. Boel, maybe that's, I think, the secondary part of that question is sort of some of that's policy-based, but some of it's just operationally based. Perhaps, if you can, provide a sort of brief update on what is happening on that front.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, indeed, there's a couple of things underway to start making more use of electronic systems for applications. First up are plumbing permits, and then there is another council priority project coming up later this year. We're going to start working and looking at all our development approval processes, and I think an idea of streamlining or prioritizing certain type of projects could be considered, definitely. Right now, we don't always know which project might be net new or is just simply a replacement. So right now, we're not really set up for that kind of a prioritization, but it's definitely something worthwhile exploring, especially down the road. We do need to work towards achieving the target where we can. And so I thank the councillor for the suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Director Boel. Could you just comment then on, will we see smaller review times after the first week in July when the bylaws are adjusted, or will we not really see those shorter review times until after the OCP later at the end of the year?
Mr. Boel.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I don't think that, well, except for the plumbing permits, that's expected to roll out before the summer. And that would apply to anybody with those kind of permits. There's going to be a little bit of time savings there, we anticipate. But for the housing projects, we need to look further at what else we can do. And that does need some preparation time, and also thinking through how we would set it up and how to go about it. So unfortunately, that will be a little bit later before we can see the results of those kind of efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for members of staff? Before I go to second time speakers, Councillor Patterson, any other? Go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you. I just have a question to staff about, in the document that will be submitted to the province, the approved development applications, because I'm trying to reconcile the units by size with the overall number of units, and I just wonder if you could comment on that. You provide a unit breakdown of what I guess you think or what the applicant is saying they're going to do, and I was hoping that the total number of those dwellings or buildings added up to the total number of applications or new units, but I couldn't make that work. So maybe you could just explain what's going on there.
Sure. Is it possible to refer to a specific page? Are you on page 16 of the report overall?
It's page 19 of 22 in the report. I've got a long PDF. In the PDF, it's right page 39 of 322.
Yep, no, that's good. It's page 19 of 22, page 5 of the that particular report, the Housing Target Progress Report form. Mr. Green?
Yeah, through the chair. So, yeah, section 5 is approved development applications. And so you can see in column 1, we have rezoning applications. So between October the 1st and March the 31st, there were 2 rezoning applications, which led to on approval. So there were 2 rezone applications approved by council at that time. Those were 2326 OB Avenue and 2199 Lansdowne Road. And essentially then through looking at the plans for those rezone applications, those were the number of units by size and number of units by tenure, and which then gave the owned units. And then that's then worked out because there was no housing agreements as part of those, there were essentially that then dictated what the rental affordability was of those specific units. And so again, yeah, working at development permits, there was one development permit which was obviously the same, which was the same 2326 Oakby Avenue, 15 units in that development, and then the breakdown of units by size is the same as column 1 for the rezoning, because it's essentially the same application being counted twice, but one was rezoning application and one was a development permit.
Thank you. I'm going to just ask a quick question before I go back to Councillor Patterson. You probably don't know the answer to this, Mr. Green, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do we have any insight as to timelines? When the province announced this process of this reporting and the targets, they laid out a timeline of, we were one of the first 10 municipalities. There was going to be 10 more, but 3 months later, 10 more, but 3 months after that. And we're now, I think, 7 or 8 months, and nobody else has been announced. Do we have any sense of whether or not? I mean, if you don't know, you don't know is a perfectly good answer.
Yeah, through the chair, I just don't know. It is a little bit surprising that they haven't announced those further 10. They keep saying that they will be issuing that further 10 with the housing target order, but likewise, they said that they promised us this reporting form in early November. We only received it in sort of mid-March time. So I think just the way the ministry is working or trying to get up to speed, I think they've had some staffing issues as well, trying to staff up as well. So that may have delayed the initiation of those further housing target orders.
Thanks. Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And while this information is interesting and it's as required by the province, I think that it would also be meaningful to the district as a community to, in these categories, also have filled in what we already have in existence in Oak Bay, because we are a mature community and not a new and growing community. And I think that there are many people in this community and certainly regionally that don't understand all the forms of housing we have. So I hope that as time goes forward, we build out not just the information of new things to respond to the province, but also a better knowledge of all of the forms of housing that we already have in Oak Bay. So I know those numbers exist, and it's extra work to put them into the chart, but I think that it would allow us a better understanding of how far we've come already as a community and where we go in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I don't see other questions, so we just probably need a motion to receive.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Thank you very much, Director Green, for that, or Deputy Director Green and Director Boel. One more step in the process. Much more work to go. We're moving on to section 8. This is reports and memorandums. I'm going to ask, because a lot of these are fairly procedural pieces, and certainly 8.1, which is the Greater Victoria Public Library, 8.2, Oak Bay Business Improvement Association budget, 8.3, the tax increase reduction options, and 8.4, which is the traffic control order for Henderson and Cedar Hill cross bike lanes. They're all items that have been, the first 3 have actually been recommendations of this body sitting as committee of the whole to ourselves, and have had significant public input at that forum. And 8.4, the Henderson Road and Cedar Hill Road piece have also had multiple directions and public input. So I appreciate there's more public input and we welcome that, but I'm just going to invite anybody on any of those topics to come forward at this point. So Mr. DeGroot, I think you wanted to speak to the bike lane 8.4. Come forward. You can start the stampede for any of those 4 items. And the same request is online. Anybody wishing to speak to council on 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, or 8.4 are all welcome up at this time. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Well, you know who I am, I've said that previously.
Mind just
So-
saying it again for the record so that
Oh,
our
sure,
note takers don't have to
okay.
go back and look.
Okay, I'm Peter de Groot. I live at 3561 Redwood Avenue, which is in North Oak Bay, North Henderson.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm here again to speak to the issue of cyclist safety, particularly on Henderson Road, north of where it comes together with Foul Bay. Tonight, I understand you have to be making a final decision about whether or not to go ahead with changing the current policy. And I submit that doing that is really finding a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. I can say that because I bicycle on that road at least 5 days a week at various hours, early in the morning, during the day, sometimes in the evening, like this evening. And it is very rare that you would find a car parked on the road. And then you get articles in the paper like this that give people the impression, and it states here, signage that negates cycling on Henderson Road remains among the concern of cyclists in Oak Bay. I don't know who these cyclists are that have a concern about their safety when they bicycle along the already path that's laid out for them on each side of the road. As I said, I never felt unsafe. So the issue is both actual and perceived safety. I got a copy of the bike map which indicates where there are issues related to bicycling, actual accidents and reported near misses. On that stretch between where the junction is Foul Bay, there's 3 spots where there are reports of near misses. I don't know what that actually meant, what actually occurred, and it's labeled as near misses. But there's one where the 2 roads come together, Foul Bay and Henderson, the other one by the school. And so there is really no issue. And so it is a shame to, and previously this has come up before council quite a few times, and a solution was reached that there would be no parking during the day, but be fine to park there during the evening. No parking from Monday to Friday. And on the sign, it says here, signage that negates cycling on Henderson Road remains among the concerns of cyclists in Oak Bay. Well, I'm not too sure what to think of that, but it is nonsense. That because there are these lanes, the bicycles can go there safely all the time. I mean, you're changing the policy is not going to make one bit of difference to the safety, real and perceived, of the cyclist. That is what I submit. I've never heard anyone in our community say, look, it is really unsafe the way it is now. You've got to change this. And also, the province has recently made the decision that cars must now stay a meter away from cyclists. That will help too. And I sure hope that at no time will you be considering spending more money on putting up concrete dividers with bollards, because that in turn creates other problems, like road rage among cyclists. There's a lot of cyclists that go to the university during the peak hours, and if you have people with electric bikes, they find a way to go past them because it's often quite feasible to do that quite safely. I speak from experience. And lastly, if you do decide to change that policy that has served us so well, I hope that you ask the staff to just buy white stickers and put them over the wording where it talks about no parking between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. rather than spend money on changing the signs. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Don't think there's questions, Mr. DeGroot, but thank you very much for your comments.
Okay, my pleasure.
Is anybody else from online or in the audience who wishes to speak to us about 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, or 8.4? I see Mr. Zhelka, who spoke to us earlier on other issues. Welcome back, Mr. Zhelka, to speak to, just if you state your name, your municipality of residence, the item you wish to speak to, and you can speak, if you wish to, you can say you're in favor of or opposed to. That helps clarify our understanding of your position. Welcome back.
Thank you. You can hear me all right?
We can.
Delightful. Chair, councillors, God save the king. So let me say, first of all, I, with respect to 8.4, absolutely adamantly opposed. It makes absolutely no sense. I am in full concurrence with the president of the North Oak Bay Henderson's Association, who just spoke with you, and unfortunately was not able to be reached by staff, I understand, in the attempted community consultation. I was very sad to hear that that did not happen. So I'm so glad that Peter had a chance to speak with you at least in this forum. Let me just zoom through the agenda for a moment. And we're starting with 8.1. I have comments about them all. I presume in this part of the agenda, I'm not restricted to 3 minutes. Is that correct?
No, we just ask that you be as quick as you can be reasonably. I will restrict you at some point if it goes too long, but please cover your points that you wish to cover.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chair. So starting with 8.1 and 8.2, unfortunately, the links to these reports that are being that allow public input at this moment, the links to the reports are not available. I find that a deficiency in the agenda. If in the future, if you're asking for public input, please provide a link to the report so that I can provide input on the report itself. I unfortunately missed the meetings in the past, and I wanted to provide my input now, but I don't know where these reports are. So I feel at a loss to speak about 8.1 or 8.2. 8.3, I am adamantly opposed to increasing taxes. I appreciate, and I'm so appreciative that staff and you, Chair, that were able to find a way to keep our tax increases down. I know there's an intent to spend up to $8 million on this thing known as bike lanes. I wish we would please call them shared use lanes. And I am opposed to spending all that money. I do note, with respect to those who are so concerned about the environment, that the one element, or the one building material known as concrete by itself, nothing else, just concrete, the creation of concrete, the use of concrete contributes by itself 8% of all greenhouse gases across the entire world. If we can reduce our use of concrete and switch over to other materials, such as lines on the road or education, or, as I'm about to speak with you, maybe focusing on where the problems really exist, such as intersections, as opposed to the spaces between intersections where there is no problem. These might go a long way to not only saving money, but also going to save our money, save our environment in a good way. So let me speak now to 8.4. I do note that if with an easy search by any of you, in terms of what are the most dangerous intersections, or you could go to the statistics section, public data available on the ICBC website, and look up where were the most dangerous intersections in Victoria that is covered in bike lanes in 2022. You'll find they had a huge amount of bike lane crashes, many of them in the bike lane already created streets. But the crashes, where did they occur? They occurred where you have an intersection, a place where you have cars going this way and bikes interacting with cars and people and pedestrians going that way. The crashes, as your police force will tell you, occur in the intersections, not between the intersections. This attempt to spend $8 million to solve a problem that doesn't exist makes no sense to me. I agree with Peter on this. So what I really was do note in the ICBC statistics for 2022 in Victoria, the worst intersection was at Douglas and Gord Street and Government, where they had 53 crashes. These are with cars. Now, with respect to bicycles, at the same intersection, there were 7 crashes involving cyclists just in the year 2022. And there are bike lanes available everywhere, and they're still having crashes. Surprise, surprise. If we focus just on the data from ICBC for Oak Bay alone, we see that in Oak Bay, the worst intersections for car crashes occur all the way along Foul Bay and Lansdowne, Foul Bay and Cadbury Bay, Fort and Foul Bay, Foul Bay and Oak Bay Avenue. There's 18 crashes. The worst one, Foul Bay and Lansdowne Road, 18 car crashes, or crashes involving a car. The worst intersection of all. Down to 11 for Cadbury Bay, Fort and Foul Bay with cars. But if I go to bicycles, I see that the worst intersection, for all of 2022, the worst intersection has 2 crashes in it. And that's up near UVic, along Cedar Hill Road. Fascinating. Only two crashes in an area where there's there's trees everywhere. Why are there all these crashes there? I think it maybe people aren't following the rules. So what I hope you would consider doing is spend the money on the intersections and maybe consider putting in roundabouts. Roundabouts are absolutely well known by engineers to save money. They use those in Europe. Europe doesn't need to spend money on concrete because they have roundabouts that make it super easy to make it super safe for everyone where the crashes actually occur in the intersections. I will stop there. I am adamantly opposed to what you're about to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhelka, for sharing your thoughts with us. Any other members of the public that wish to speak to 8.1 through 8.4? Don't see any, so that's just procedurally a little easier to deal with. If anybody does hasn't spoken and in the course of things wishes to speak, please do raise your hand online or in person, but I won't be waiting. We're just going to move through these items as we go forward. First up is item 8.1, the Greater Victoria Public Library. This is a recommendation from Committee of the Whole, which is this body sitting as committee, to approve the Victoria Public Library budget as presented. Do you wish to just to have that moved? Move the recommendation.
I will.
Everybody's pointing at Councillor Appleton here.
I will move the staff recommendation under 8.1, Your Worship.
This is a committee
Oh, sorry,
recommendation.
excuse me. Yes, this is committee of the whole recommendation.
Yeah, committee recommendation moved and seconded. Thank you. We often don't talk about these too much just because they're recommendations from ourselves to ourselves, but we're welcome to if anybody wishes to. Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. 8.2 is the Oak Bay Business Improvement Association.
I'll move that
budget.
the 2024 Oak Bay Business Improvement Association budget be approved.
Second.
Move and second. Same recommendation from Committee of the Whole. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We move on to 8.3, tax increase reduction options. This was not a, actually I can't remember, there was debate on the individual items of this, but at the end of the day, I think it came close to a unanimous recommendation moving forward. Councillor Rates.
I'll move the recommendation on the agenda.
This is the summer recommendations. Moved and seconded.
Can they be severed?
We can sever them. If there's a wish of council, I'm happy to sever. Yeah. Okay, so with that, I will call them individually in order then. So I'm happy to read them out just so we're clear about what we're doing. So the first recommendation, the staff be directed to utilize non-market change revenue in the 2024 to partially fund staff increases. Moved and seconded. It's actually all been moved. I'm just going to take them as I'm going to call the question on each of them. Any discussion on that one? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Then we have the recommendation that council direct staff to reduce tax funding for the contingent budget by $140,000. Any discussion on that one? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And we have the motion is that this is a motion amending a motion previously adopted by council that staff reduce the tax funded portion of the soil remediation operating budget by $75,000 annually for testing, hauling, and disposal of soil in conjunction with newer replacement services, and the unfunded portion be funded through related connection fee increases. Sorry, it's already been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that one? All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Appleton opposed. We move the following motion, again, proposes to amend a motion previously adopted by council that a 5-year implementation strategy for the 9 cycling facilities priorities in the 2023 Active Transportation Strategy Review be approved and funded through a property tax increase of 2.9% phased in over 5 years. That's any discussion on that one? Call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? Councillor Watson, Appleton, Smart opposed. And that carries. And then the addition of probably should move these together. Addition of one full-time active transportation, actually, my apologies, these are really kind of grouped together. That's okay, I'll sever them, I'll deal with it. The addition of one full-time active transportation coordinator position approved to support active transportation generally and the implementation of the priority projects identified in the 2023 active transportation strategy review. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Watson, Appleton, Smart opposed. And further, that staff report back with the prioritized construction schedule over the 5-year period based on the assessment of the underground infrastructure replacement program. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Appleton and Smart opposed. And then that staff prepare the 2024 to 2028 financial plan bylaw. Moved, don't actually, we don't have to move, it's already been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Thank you very much. I'm happy to do that. I think it's always good for people to have their records, their motion, their votes on the record. So 8.4 is a traffic control order 2024-02 for Henderson and Cedar Hill Cross bike lanes. Well, I said this has been dealt with at other things. This is a little bit different. This is not a recommendation from committee. This is a sort of an past direction given from council to undertake this. These are traffic control orders coming back. Mr. Rennick, would you like to provide a brief overview?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor notes, this is a recommendation. It's a council resolution from the February 12th, 2024 meeting. That resolution directed staff to prepare changes to traffic control orders along Henderson Road and Cedar Hill Cross Road, and also asked for recommendations into changes to residential parking on the adjacent streets. As the report notes, because the ability to make changes to residential parking has been delegated to the Director of Engineering and Public Works, staff has already taken that part on. And so the only part that is here for council's consideration is the traffic control order that would remove the part-time status from Henderson and Cedar Hill Cross Road, having them become full-time no parking and full-time cycle lanes. And I would just note that cycle lane is the terminology that is used in the Streets and Traffic Bylaw, just for the sake of consistency. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rennick. So with this one, I think what I'll probably do here, just for simplicity's sake, since is we'll have a motion to receive the report that's here. So maybe I have a motion to receive, moved and seconded. Thank you. I'll call the question on that. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? And if someone wishes to move the motion here, then we can debate that motion. So moved. Councillor Appleton, seconded. Thank you. So the recommendation that traffic control order number 2024 is now moved and seconded, so we can discuss it, debate it, etc. We've had public input. You heard some of the concerns of the community. We have the direction given previously in terms of the active transportation policy and pieces. So I turned over to council to perhaps talk to the motion, please. Councillor Green.
Thank you. Thank you, and thanks to staff. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Rennick, thank you. Consistent with my position in February, I will be voting against this motion, and it is not because I'm against cycling in Oak Bay or any kind of active transportation. In fact, my husband has just purchased an e-trike, a three-wheel vehicle, which may not fit in some of these lanes. We're a little concerned about that. But I'm opposing this because I really don't feel we've done adequate consultation as a municipality with that area, North Henderson. I was very much hoping we would have a small town hall with the North Henderson Residents Association invited. I think we owe, as a courtesy to the people that they're going to live with this. We are not. I don't think any of us live on Henderson or in the near area. So that's why I'm opposed. I wanted more fulsome consultation with the neighbors in the area and with the area generally. And I'm sorry that we didn't do that, and therefore, unfortunately, I have to oppose this motion, not because I'm opposed to cycling or other forms of transportation, but because I really wanted to hear from the people who live there.
Councillor Smart, Councillor Braithwaite.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to address some of the comments tonight around this being around perceived safety as well as safety, and I couldn't agree more. This is about perceived safety as well, and that's one of the most important aspects of this is mode shift and getting more residents on bicycles. I just want to give a couple statistics just to share tonight because I think it really puts it in perspectives, and this is from the Impacts of Bicycle Infrastructure in Mid-Sized Cities study that was done by the City of Victoria, and it's a Greater Victoria study. And it suggests that 20% of residents feel comfortable biking on a busy street with no bike lane. 55% of residents feel safe cycling on a major busy street with a painted bike lane. And 76% of residents feel safe riding on a major busy street with a lane that is separated from traffic. And so this speaks to the ability of us to mode shift. And when you look at the willingness also of the community to do this, I urge you to look at the survey, but it's amazing when you look at some of these statistics, and this is local statistics, that 46% of those that had cycled at least once in the past year, of those, so 54% of residents had not cycled. 37% of those that had not cycled would if they had safer bike infrastructure. The community is there, they're ready, they want to, and we need to, as we densify, get people out of their cars if they're willing.
Thank you, Councillor Smart, Councillor Braithwaite, and then Watson.
Thank you, and thanks to my fellow councillors for their comments. This is a very tough one for me. I really struggle with it. I think that the bottom line for me is that I don't want people to think that we're against, as Councillor Green said, that we're against bike lanes, because we're not. I think that we did miss the boat a little bit on this as far as public consultation goes. And so, again, I struggle with wanting to support this, but then wanting to support the residents up there as well, because I'm not sure that I see that there is an issue on Henderson. The other thing that I don't like is that it's in the staff report, it's going to cost $10,000 to change those signs. I like Mr. DeGroot's suggestion that we put white tape on the signs, because I think that would be pretty good to save us $10,000. $10,000 can go to a lot of different things within our community. So again, I'm struggling with this. I think I'm probably going to err on the side of caution and vote against it, but I'd love to hear what other comments from around the table.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. I have Councillor Watson and Appleton.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to say that I will be voting in support of this motion, and so glad that we finally have this traffic control order in front of us and an opportunity to move forward. Notwithstanding Councillor Green's comment that she wanted more input, I think there has been plenty of discussion about this over many months now. Everybody in the neighborhood was notified. Some of them did write to us. We've had many people in the chambers and a lot of correspondence. And so I feel very confident that we have heard the will of the community about this. And I also just want to reflect that if, as one resident has suggested, there are really no parked cars there in the evening, that's great, because that supports this idea that there really isn't a residential parking problem. So that instituting this as a 7 days a week, 24 bike lane will really not impact any resident, but will hugely impact this idea that we're starting to build a reliable bike network in Oak Bay. So I just encourage us to move forward with this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So speaking in support of the motion, I won't belabor the issue too much, but I will just say that this was, as many members of the community have pointed out to us, was a recommendation in the 2011 Active Transportation Strategy and was sort of identified as a quick win at that time. So I think that still holds true, and I think that still has value now, and I think that this is a step that we can make to show a small amount of forward movement on a safer infrastructure in that part of the district. And what I can say is that there is some value, in my view, to consistency with other regions as well. This is the only part-time bike lane of its kind anywhere in Greater Victoria that I'm aware of. And even if the actual impact may not be extraordinary in terms of vehicles being parked in the lane, if you are proficient or if you are in the habit of riding in bike lanes and if you select bike lanes as your mode of getting around, planning your trips around those lanes, it's reasonable for you to expect that that lane's going to be in place at all times and not only in a part-time basis as the current situation is. So I think that there's a lot of value in having consistency with other regions as well, and just in my view, a good idea. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Appleton, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And it's interesting because even the staff report says that there are rarely vehicles parked in the lanes during evenings or weekends. So while I don't really relish spending $10,000 for a problem that doesn't actually seem to be a problem, nevertheless, there have been opportunities for the public to speak on this, and it did come from a committee of the whole. So I will support it, but I guess my only concern on this is, and it may not be that viable a concern since there's, from the staff report, there's no parking on the streets anyways most of the time, but the enforcement. There's nothing in the report that says we will enforce this beyond our normal standards of enforcement with our parking commissioners that we have, which is generally business hours. And so I think initially, if there are parked vehicles, hopefully we will take some time to educate people in the area. And I would hate to think that we will get complaints coming in after hours, but I anticipate then that they would have to be managed by emergency services. I don't know, but perhaps we can ask that question.
I think, does this fall to, I'm going to seek the direction, is that Mr. Boel? Is that the...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that question would actually be better directed to Oak Bay Police.
I think they have the right to ticket people if they're parked in a no parking zone. I believe that's correct. I just want to make sure I'm...
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
The part that I was referring to was as to whether there would be any changes to enforcement of that particular type of complaint, which is because that is done through commissionaires who, as the councillor notes, works during business hours.
But that's no different than, that's no different than current practice, which is, so enforcement of the current rules would happen in exactly the same way.
That is correct.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So, as I said, I will support this. I think that it has had a lot of discussion in public meetings. It does not appear, based on what we've heard from even a member of the gallery today, it does not seem to be something that will cause a great hardship for local residents. And so I think it merits at least a trial to see what feedback we get from both from local residents and from the cyclists too. So I will support the motion going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I think that's everybody has spoken. I'll just say a few words here. I do appreciate Mr. de Groot and Mr. Zhelka coming out tonight to speak to this. I think it's and I really appreciate the recognition that this is a decision not driven by the highest priority by risk or accidents. It is, however, I think a couple of pieces. One, I think it's worth acknowledging that active transportation plan laid out in 2011 did identify this as one of a contiguous set of cycling infrastructure. While not paramount to safety, there is design best practices around any infrastructure to make it contiguous and consistent. And I think one of the problems that we have right now is that it is not contiguous or consistent. The design is not consistent with other bike lanes, and it's not contiguous with other areas, which is something else that we're trying to resolve. I do think that when we adopted that active transportation, the cycling corridor plan, while the designs are still to be finalized, it does sort of indicate to us that drives this sort of change to 24/7. I don't want to dismiss the impacts it has on some of the people that are on that street. I think it will have some impacts if people are parking in the evening and want to have gatherings and so forth. That is true. I will also say that look at the adjacent parking and adjacent streets is a critical piece, but also I think in the medium term, as we go about more detailed design of these corridors, we also have the idea of perhaps looking at, given the width of the road, of perhaps finding some parking on street with parking in conjunction with parking spots. There is some possibility of finding that as well in the long term, that we may find some areas that we can add some parking back in and still have bike lanes available on that stretch. But I do think that the overarching principles of consistency and contiguousness of these bikes, things that we adopted in that plan, I think are important. And I as someone who has to go and speak to the North Oak Bay Residents Association in a few days, I appreciate that might not be a popular stance to be taking on this one. But I don't want to dismiss the concerns of people who live in that area. But I do think that, given the conversation that we've had here in the past, that it's supportable to make this final piece. So I will speak in support of it, subject to, of course, any other comments that people might wish to make that might change my mind. Any other discussion on this matter? Okay, I will call the question then. All those in favor? And those opposed? We have Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Green opposed. That does carry. The traffic control order will be implemented. Thank you, Mr. DeGroof, for coming. I am going to move on to the next item on the agenda. You're welcome to stay, but you do not have to. 8.5, the electric kick scooter pilot project. We have Mr. Rennick, who is the Deputy Director of Engineering and Public Works, back with us for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another item that is in response to a previous council resolution. At the March 25th meeting, a motion was passed asking staff to provide an analysis of the resources and steps required for the district to join the new e-kick scooters pilot project being offered through Ministry of Transportation. In response to that motion, staff went and did some research about what the electric kick scooter regulations have to say, attended a conference call with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and generally tried to see how these devices would fit into the official community plan, to other district policies, and how it would fit in with our neighbors. So I'll just provide a brief highlight of what is in the electric kick scooter regulations. These devices have to have no more than a 500-watt motor. They must be designed to carry only one person and a small amount of cargo, basically a backpack. No passengers, no towing someone. They must be equipped with lights, brakes, and the person operating the device must be a minimum of 16 years old and must be wearing an approved cycling safety helmet. They also cannot be impaired or distracted. All of these rules are set out in the electric kick scooter regulation. Penalties for contravening these rules would generally be a $109 ticket, which could be levied by the Oak Bay Police. And I am happy to take any further questions that any council members may have. My conclusion was that were Oak Bay to join the pilot project, it would not represent a significant increase on staff resources. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rennick. Councillor Green, and then Patterson, and then Watson.
Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Rennick, thank you very much again for the report. Just a question about crosswalks. I was reading the report and I noted that there were some restrictions around sidewalks, but I'm also concerned about crosswalks. And I know the rule for bicycles is that you must get off, dismount, and then walk across with your bike. So I'm hoping that same rule would apply to the e-scooters, that they would be unable to run across pedestrian crossings, that they would have to dismount and walk. Thank you.
Mr. Rennick?
Through you, Mayor, the regulations currently state that on shared pathways, the e-scooters have to travel at walking speed. It is another potential ambiguity in our bylaws, and I might suggest that if council is amenable to joining the project, that along with the direction to clarify that these cannot be used on sidewalks, could also clarify that they not be used in crosswalks, or if they are used in crosswalks, they are not to exceed walking speed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson, then Watson.
Yes, thank you. I guess on this issue, I must admit I didn't know that we prevented these in our bylaw. I haven't read too many of the police reports that give us any advice on tickets being issued for people using them in the District of Oak Bay presently. And so Mr. Rennick has referred to the fine that will be imposed, providing, I suppose, that the police and cruiser cars can actually overtake the people on these kick scooters that seem to go everywhere. But is there presently a fine? Do we actually enforce the existing bylaw that does not permit these in the district? Because they're certainly around.
Mr. Rennick?
Through you, Mayor, there's a few pieces to that question. Because they are motorized devices, if they are currently being operated on a road, they are a motorized device that does not have insurance because ICBC does not sell insurance for these devices. There is a possibility that police could levy a very serious fine for operating an uninsured vehicle. That being said, Oak Bay Police's approach is primarily education over enforcement. And so the conversation that I had with Chief Fisher was that Oak Bay Police would be supportive of Oak Bay joining the pilot project so that they have the ability to selectively educate on things like not wearing helmets or disobeying the other rules of the road, as opposed to the full blanket, this is an uninsured vehicle approach.
Yeah, no, I think that information is really helpful because it's helpful to know that our police officers are actually in support of this program too. So thank you for that information.
Councillor Watson?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, a question for staff, please. Mr. Rennick, kick scooter pilot, generally, my understanding is that as a pilot idea or program, the province would be looking for information from participant communities to help them determine if and how kick scooters should be continued to be authorized. And I just wondered if the province has given any guidance as to what kind of data or evaluation framework they're expecting participating municipalities to provide.
Mr. Rennick?
Through you, Mayor, an excellent question, and one that was brought up on the conference call. We know at this point in time that data they're looking for includes copies of any accident reports. If police attend to a collision between an e-scooter and a vehicle or a pedestrian, a copy of that report will be made available to Ministry of Transportation through ICBC. That's one piece that we know of. In municipalities that have businesses operating rentals of electric kick scooters, uptake on rental is likely to be another piece of data. They have not fully rolled out what are all of the pieces of data that they are looking for. There was some discussion in the conference call of will they want usage counts on busy roads. They didn't seem to think that they were going to go too heavy with the approach. And so that was why staff had to make kind of an educated guess that based on the kinds of data they were talking about, that it didn't seem like it was going to be hugely onerous for us to collect it and report on it.
Thank you, that's helpful. And then just one other issue. If we decided that we wanted to sign up and go forward with this, how would we communicate that change or adoption of this to the public or to the kick scooter riding population?
Mr. Rennick?
Through you, Mayor, we would communicate first to the province by sending them an email. On their website, they have a list of all of the participating communities, and I know they're updating it regularly because they've recently added Victoria and Salish, who have recently joined. We potentially could message it out through district social media, but my thought would be that if someone is looking at buying an electric kick scooter and they want to play by the rules because they're like me, the first thing they will Google is British Columbia electric kick scooter regulations, and right there on the landing page, they would see the list of communities where they are allowed to use one.
Thank you. Don't see any other questions. I'm going to go to the public now. If there's any members of the public who wish to address council on this matter, it's the electric kick scooter pilot project. I see one hand up. I think that is a new hand, not just a legacy hand from a previous ask. So would the, Mr. Zhelka, if that's still you on the same line, wishes to speak to us, if you just, again, state your name, municipality of residence, and then you can ask a question or make a comment.
Thank you so much, Chair and councillors. Yes, I would like to make a public comment about this, and I do appreciate the report coming forward with this innovative idea. I do want to make reference to something known as elephant's feet. There are now in most other parts of British Columbia made available from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure 2 different kinds of crosswalks. The normal crosswalk that we know and love, and a new kind of crosswalk that has these blobs on both sides referred to as elephant's feet. And with those blobs on both sides of the crosswalk, now let me quote from the province. It tells cyclists they do not need to dismount as they would at a regular crosswalk. Cyclists should always yield to pedestrians. Very helpful advice there. But with those elephant feet, cyclists, and I presume these kick scooters, could just ride right across without having to dismount. So the question I have through you, Chair, maybe to staff, is do we allow elephant's feet since in Oak Bay, since I've not seen them anywhere in our fair municipality, but I have seen them in Salish and in Victoria?
Mr. Rennick, probably not a matter of allowance, but we don't believe we have any right now. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor, to the member of the public, no, elephant's feet would need to be an amendment to the Streets and Traffic Bylaw, and that has not happened in District of Oak Bay, and so there are no elephant's feet crossing in the District of Oak Bay at this time.
At this time being probably the requisite term there. Thank you. Thank you for that. I don't see any other members of the public indicating they wish to speak or ask questions in the audience or remotely. So with that, I will come back to this table. We have a recommendation here, probably to start with motion to receive the report, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed, unopposed? Councillor Smart, you brought this to our attention in the first place, catching that this was happening. Why don't I have you you can just say move the motion.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Green?
Thank you. Just a few comments. I will be supporting this motion, but I just wanted to talk about safety and headgear. As a former motorcyclist for over 15 years, I know how important headgear is, and I also know how important training is. My only concern about these e-kick scooters and other electric vehicles is the torque. They have a lot of torque, and I know that these in particular are very lightweight and incredibly nimble, but I am concerned over the long run about safety, and I'm hoping that by being a part of a pilot, we can identify some of those safety issues, because I have spoken with, I've been spending more time than I would like to recently with an orthopedic surgeon, and he has described some of the cases referred to him from falls from these kinds of vehicles, electric vehicles. So just a note of caution. I think it's really important that we participate so that we can also have some leadership, perhaps opportunities on safety and the other aspects of these vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to the matter? Councillor Smart?
Well, thank you. I will just add that there's a previous 4-year pilot project that's already happened that has that safety data, and it's available online. It's really interesting to read. I was actually surprised at how safe the reportings have been so far.
Thank you very much. Don't see any other discussion, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed, none opposed? I anticipate no change from this, since there was so many of these kick scooters floating around anyway. But good to have it be a little bit more clear in terms of the roles and responsibilities attached. So thank you again, Councillor Smart, for bringing that forward. Item number 8.6, we have an award of tender for Meadow Place storm upgrades. I'm not sure who I'm giving this to. Is it Mr. Rennick? Mr. Murray, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to bring forward a report on the award of tender for Meadow Place storm upgrades. So that's the replacement of older stormwater mains on Meadow Place with a single 300 millimeter diameter stormwater main within the roadway. Staff have reviewed the tender submission and recommend that the contract be awarded to Scotia Contracting. Happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Sure, thank you very much. Are there any questions? And just a reminder to the public, if anybody wishes to speak to this item, please raise your hand or indicate in the room here. I can call at the time. Anybody online can indicate now, so we can go back to you. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you to staff, just two quick questions. What's the approximate length of pipe being replaced? And what's the approximate timeline for the project to be completed from start to finish, I guess?
Mr. Memora?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. About 136 meters of storm pipe is going to be going into the ground, and timeline is May, starting in May, if awarded, and would finish substantial completion be July 5th.
Councillor Appleton?
So thank you to staff for that. I just the reason I ask is just as staff have pointed out exactly in the financial impact section of the report that unit rates are very, very high. Just the actual cost of 410,000 is the tender to do 170 some odd meters is very, very high. So just something that the public should be aware of, that this is the most competitive bid, and just underlining what staff have outlined as far as unit costs and escalation in just the cost of these types of projects overall is something that bears underlining. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for bringing forward the report. I'm just wondering a little bit further on Councillor Appleton's question, but have we defined if there's any further risk to the budget just due to unanticipated work on any other utility services in the area, or are we confident that we have done all of the preliminary investigation that would be required to determine that?
Thank you. Specifically, sewer and water, particularly. Mr. Memora?
Through you, Mayor, yes, we've done our due diligence there, and detailed design should, for the most part, eliminate any further risks of the cost escalating in construction.
I might continue with just a little carry on from that, though. I think I read the question also as, have we done a survey of the sewer and water pipes in there as well to determine whether or not there's a cost efficiency of replacing them and where they are in their life cycle? Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The engineering department is changing the approach, and council will hear more about that in the future in terms of what are the triggers for replacing additional pieces of infrastructure on a given road. That being said, none of the other underground utilities on Meadow Place raised immediate flags for us when scoping out this project, but we will be more rigorous in that sort of analysis in the future, and council will hear a lot more about that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor. It kind of interrupted you, Councillor Appleton, or Patterson. Is there anything else you wish to add? Okay. Are there any other questions from members of council on this prior to going to members of the public? Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to follow up from Councillor Appleton's observation that this per unit cost is really high. And a question of staff, is that, it was bid and people have responded with prices, but is the fact that it's kind of a little orphaned block and you have to go in and do all the setup costs for a small project part of a driver in that? Like, what is creating that higher per unit cost?
Mr. Memora?
Through you, Mayor. So the higher cost is just a nature of inflationary pressures with larger scales of economy. Potentially there's a mobilization piece in there being a bit of a smaller stretch, but generally we're seeing higher costs across the region.
Thank you. Nothing here. Questions at this time. I'll go to online. We have a hand raised with a question or a comment.
Thank you, Chair. May I speak now?
You may. Just same process, if you don't mind. Just your name and municipality of residence.
Eric Zhelka, North Oak Bay. A question here about the stormwater upgrade. I do note in the, I think plumbing bylaw that any houses that have to hook up to these sorts of services, if while the road is open, they get a 50% discount if they hook up at the time that the road is open. If a house stormwater lead is found to hook up to one of these things and it needs to be reconnected, what will be the process here to communicate with the local residents to make sure they can take advantage of that 50% off deal in our plumbing and bylaw, please?
Thank you, Mr. Zhelka. And a unique situation here where we're actually taking side of the street clay pipes and tile and moving to a new pipe in the middle of the road. Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. When these projects start, a letter is sent out to all of the residents along the street, letting them know that the project is coming, letting them know that there is this discount under the bylaw. We follow up with them again once the projects have been awarded, and so essentially the way that residents find out about the discount, if they don't already know about it, is by us mailing letters to every single house that is affected and could potentially receive the discount.
Thank you for that. Okay. With that, back to this table.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded for receipt. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
Move the staff recommendation.
Moved and seconded. This is to award the contract for Meadow Place storm upgrades. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed? Thank you for that. And thank you. Good luck with the work. A small but important project in all of these pieces. Everybody appreciates when their storm drains work. We move to item number 9, which is Heritage Revitalization Agreement. Now, I did say at the beginning of this meeting that I was going to suggest a quick break at the on the hour. We're a little past that. I went 2 hours without that process underway. Or sorry, 1 hour and 22 minutes. I could use a quick break if so. It's 8:22 at the moment. If we can be back here at 8:26, 4 minutes, then we can just stand up, shake our legs, and come back here. All right, I'm going to ask everybody if we can have a seat. It's at 8:26. We will recommence our meeting here. We have all members of council back at the table, members of staff largely back in the room. All right, with that, we have a 9.1, which is a heritage revitalization agreement for 1587 York Place. We have Mr. McStravick here, one of our planners, to introduce this matter. Procedurally, this is as it is a type of application that is subject to public hearing, we don't take public input during the meeting. We have received some correspondence, and that is always welcome. But there would be, if this moves forward, a formal opportunity for public to weigh in. So this is really, at this point, a litmus test of whether it's going to move forward to a public hearing, or if members of council wish to see changes. If there's minor changes, I believe we could just make those changes and move it forward. But if they're substantial, then they would go back to staff and the applicant to work on. So with that, I'll hand this over to Mr. McStravick. Welcome.
The next item here, as was mentioned, is 1587 and 1561 York Place, an application for heritage revitalization agreements. And I'll just give a brief presentation if I can. There we go. So some quick background on the project. It's an application that council received previously on the 11th of December. And the applicant, Mark Holland, has submitted a revised application in response to feedback received at that December 11th meeting. The applicants wish to revitalize the Annandale house, including by making significant code and life safety improvements, fixing many profoundly deteriorated elements of the house, and generally preserving the building to ensure its survival into the future. And I'll just go over some of the key aspects of the proposal that have been changed since the December 11th meeting. Oh, there's an ortho photo just to show the location. So as I said, the report went to council on the 11th of December previously, and council passed this resolution unanimously. At that meeting, some of the key topics of discussion included opportunities to add additional residential density. The design of the two new structures was discussed in relation to the Prospect Heritage Conservation Area Guidelines. Tree retention was discussed at length, as well as impacts of the proposed interventions on the Annandale Heritage House. So key changes to the proposal since council last saw it and in response to that feedback are that the applicant now proposes to convert Annandale into a 4-unit residential strata building. And related to that, certain interior rooms which were proposed to be heritage designated previously are no longer proposed for specific heritage designation. Lot B is now proposed to contain a residential duplex with secondary rental suites. Previously that was proposed as a new modern style single family home. The traditional design aesthetic of the structure on Lot B is more in keeping with the HCA guidelines. And lastly, the last significant change is that a revised landscape design has been submitted, which attempts to create a new Gary Oak Meadow style planting in the frontage, including by planting 36 new Gary Oak trees. And a total of 50 new trees will be planted as part of this proposal. So here's a table just giving a quick overview of the housing impacts of the proposal. As you can see in the far right column, the proposal would result in 6 net new units of housing. Certain aspects of the proposal do remain unchanged, including that a section of the Annandale house is still proposed to be removed. The Annandale house is proposed to be rotated and relocated within the subject property. 26 trees are still proposed to be removed, including mature Gary oaks. And also the single-family house proposed for Lot C, which is the conversion of an existing garage structure, remains as a modernist design, which is out of keeping with the Heritage Conservation Area Design Guidelines. The Heritage Commission had a chance to review this revised proposal at the regular meeting of April 3rd, and the revised proposal failed to receive a supportive recommendation from the Heritage Commission. And you can see their recommendation here and also in the staff report. So to summarize, the revised proposal will restore a significant heritage home while contributing to the district's housing needs, although a significant portion of the house is proposed to be removed and the building will be shifted on site. The proposal will provide additional infill housing units, and the proposal will also result in the removal of a portion of the Annandale house, as mentioned, and result in the removal of a substantial number of Gary Oak trees. Those last 2 points remain as weaknesses of an otherwise very strong proposal, which the applicants have, again, revised in response to Council's previous feedback. So the staff recommendation contained in the report before you is that we should be given direction to draft a Heritage Revitalization Agreement bylaw and schedule a public hearing to move forward with the project that way. I wish to just lastly note that attachment 11 of my report, which is I think the very last page of 194 pages, it wasn't made clear in my report, but that was an attachment provided by the applicants and authored by the applicants, just for clarity. And as well, the applicant Mark Holland is here tonight and wishes to speak if there is an opportunity to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. McStravick, and thank you for having us back in front of us again. I absolutely would welcome Mr. Holland to come to speak to council if you wish to have some opening remarks, and we'll certainly expect you to answer some questions here, I think. Welcome to the meeting. If you could just state your name and your business for the record.
Thank you, Your Worship. My name is Mark Holland. I'm with West Plan Consulting Group, and we're the applicant on behalf of the landowner for this project. I have a few slides, if it would please Your Worship, for me just to share those. It won't take long. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. It's good to be back before you again, since the last time we met was before Christmas. And we had a very good session then, and I appreciate the guidance. Each of you gave us guidance as to what was important. We have since spent the last 4 months working closely with staff to find our way forward. Again, the building in question, built in 1898, the architect was Tiarks. It was a group of 2 homes built for 2 very high-level public servants in their day. They came west after having served in high levels of positions in the east, and set up their law office here and here on the west coast. And this was these homes were built for them. Annandale House and Garrison House. Garrison House, unfortunately, was destroyed by a fire in the early 1930s. Its land was then developed and broken into several lots, and there's homes on those now here in the HCA. The Annandale estate, likewise, several decades later, was also subdivided. And this is consistent with the rest of the area. Most of the large mansions in this area, all but one, have had homes subdivided, land subdivided out of it. And of all of those, only one of them has not already built on them. So this is quite a common pattern that we see in the area. Unfortunately, over the last 30 years, this house has fallen into very significant disrepair, and the estimated proposed cost of this is somewhere between probably $2.5 to $3 million now to bring it back to its former glory. Since we met with you, the process sort of included these steps. We went back and detailed, reviewed through your comments. I made tables and we went all through them in detail. We had a lot of discussions with our design team. Obviously, there was the last attempt was a miss, and there was a lot of different options in terms of how to interpret the advice we got. We went outside, we talked to neighbors, we talked to designers, we talked to heritage experts. We discussed some of the options they emerged with the immediate neighbors. We revisited the arborist reports and talked to the arborists about the trees. The list of conflicting objectives was pretty long, and so we started working on, okay, what would be feasible? And we've worked very closely with your staff at each step. And if I may just pause for a second, Your Worship, I would like to commend staff. I know we started this evening with a discussion on housing targets, and staff are frequently blamed for those. The work that we've had with your staff has been exemplary. They have provided immense guidance, insight. They've been tough on us. They've made it, they understand the complexities. They've dug with us into them to find options. And I'd just like to say that we greatly appreciate and we're honored to have had their support through this. In terms of reflecting on, you each gave us many different points of what was important to you. We sort of condensed these down to 3 fundamental things. We had a miss on the housing in the last applicant. We came forward with 2 single-family homes, and that was not acceptable to council. So you wanted more diversity and more density. Trees. This one is a tough one because most of the trees, no matter where, if we're going to move vehicles, whenever we put new homes on land, move them around, move vehicles in, we end up removing trees. And so this was the challenge there. So we took a different approach to that, hopefully, that you'll see the value of that. And finally, the heritage, I think we got a clear message that what we had done last time was insufficient. And so what we've done so far, as was quickly summarized by your planner here, was in Annandale House has gone from a single-family home as originally proposed to now a 4-plex. 3 suites on the main floor that also have upper floors and a suite in the lower floor. The infill house likewise went from a large single-family home to a duplex with suites. The trees, we pulled Annandale House from its proposed location previously back. That permitted us to save some more vegetation in the area. We couldn't quite save as many as we wanted because of the root balls and their sensitivity, but we were able to save some, and that gives us a little more depth as well in the setbacks from York Place. What we then went to was to work with our landscape architects, and I'll take you through the landscape plan right now shortly here. And finally, probably the biggest move was to scrap the infill house design entirely, go back to the drawing board with a blank sheet of paper and reinvent that as a duplex with suites done in a classic traditional design of a craftsman home. So 4-plex in Annandale and 4 units, a duplex with suites in the additional housing. I think the direction we got from staff on this one and that we felt was very, and from yourselves, was we needed more diversity of housing. This area in York Place and this area is largely single-family homes. We needed to make it more attainable. So the suites that were added to the duplex, they basically create a 3-bedroom home with a mortgage helper, which begins to make this area significantly more attainable for families and others who can do that. It also creates a diversity of housing, which will probably quite change the face of that street. This brings social diversity and sensitive density, and I think we heard loud and clear the proximity to Oak Bay Village really puts this in a place where we need more housing. So this was the direction that we got and understood from yourselves and from staff since then in working on this. With respect to trees, we tried many different options for how to keep vehicles from parking in the front yard and even just to get them onto these sites. And so no matter what we did, we were losing trees. So we focused our effort on the main trees that go along the frontage to keep that sort of large mature canopy and went to our landscape architect and said, you got to help us here. So she went back to the drawing board and came forward with a whole proposal for essentially a Gary Oak forest and native meadow in the area, recognizing that when Annandale and Garrison House were put in, this was a clear cut, and all those trees are much younger than that. So in this case, with the new housing, we would expect to have a much denser original Gary Oak forest in the area. So the landscape architect came back with 3 gardens for us. She said, let's work with the Gary Oak Meadow, along with a whole host of Gary Oaks planted around it, but let's plant a full understory of the original native meadow that would have been there. And then let's pick 2 other types of gardens that reflect the history and the present and the future of Oak Bay. So we have a classic heritage English arts and crafts garden around the Annandale House, not dissimilar to what we expect would have been there originally. And then we have a slightly more contemporary West Coast garden with a slightly different expression and form and landscape around the new traditionally designed duplex. So this was the renderer's version when working with the landscape architect a few years from now, with the new Gary Oaks that are planted there, the strong mature ones that are still there, and the meadow that would be put in on the other side of the stone wall. Finally, then, to move on to the house. So the one on the left was what we came forward with last time, very clearly a modernist character. And there are other homes like this in the HCA as precedent. So it was a reasonable proposal, but definitely not one that was received well. So we've moved over to a craftsman design. So this is the elevations that the architects have created for the design. So we have a side-by-side duplex with a front door and a stoop that comes out to the front to bring a public face to the street. Dormers to create slightly more living space upstairs, but still allow a nice steep, traditionally designed roof line. Of importance, the garages. We didn't want to push the vehicles. This is a slightly wider home than the previous one, and vehicle travel would take everything out around the building all the way around to the back and then take up a lot of the backyard. So working with the designers, we sank the garage. We limited the parking, so there's not a lot of parking here. The suites don't have parking. This is a 1 unit per unit. One parking stall, and we put it in the basement, and so the driveway goes down this way here. This keeps the cars out of the view in the front gardens. It's consistent with a lot of this area, and it also allowed us to keep the house again further down into the ground as well to limit that look. So its relationship to Annandale House is subordinate, it's sympathetic, it fits with the Heritage Conservation Area Character Guidelines, and it creates a socially active frontage now with Annandale House and this home both proposed. We have a lovely veranda in Annandale House. We have the front-facing stoops and entrance of the infill house, and definitely a presence of eyes on the street and a sense of sociability across the wall in this case. The final thing that I think we didn't pay enough attention to last time and would like to propose, the Annandale House is an interesting home because from a heritage perspective, it is an important home in the history of the area, but it's hard to see from the road, and what we do see is really a fairly unattractive part of it and a very diminutive part of it compared to what the current eastern facade is like. And very little is said about it, and none of that is visible at all from York Place or Prospect Place or anywhere in the area. So working with one of our team members, she suggested, let's put a plaque. So this is not an original idea, but she said, let's get a plaque here. Let's bring forward the story of Annandale House. And because Annandale House was a twin and lost its twin in the Garrison fire, maybe we consider renaming the meadows, the Oak Bay Meadow here, as Garrison Meadows, and that gives us the opportunity to tell a bit of the story of Garrison House. So at least we bring their memory back visible in the public realm along York Place. So at this stage here, I'll conclude. That's just the quick update and storyline of this. Council, we're not asking council for a decision tonight in terms of to approve or deny the project. There's been a lot of discussion on this, but it's been a fairly small group, yourselves, your staff, ourselves, the commission, and a half dozen neighbors. And so we felt, other than an open house and things we held, it hasn't been a public discussion. And there's a story here around what to do with very, very old homes that are in very bad condition and are burdened with both a lot of meaning and a lot of importance. And so the request to you would be to allow us to move to a public hearing to open this conversation up for an exploration of how people feel about this balance of objectives that we've tried to bring and discuss this. I think maybe the team felt fairly pleased. There's a certain sense of hope, I think, in the discussion here in the team as we move forward on this. We're dealing with important assets from the past, but we're also responsible to the future. And this opportunity here brings a diversity of housing. It brings a beautiful story of gardens. It brings a very rich Garry Oak Meadow and native vegetation back. It opens up some of the barriers that were here before, so we get a social, active frontage here, and it brings some of the story of Annandale back to the street and back to the public awareness. So I'll end there, Your Worship, and I am available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holland, for the presentation. I'm sure there are going to be some questions, so why don't we get to that at this point, either to staff or to the applicant. Go ahead, Councillor Smart. Someone has to go first.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, and this could be for the staff or applicant, but I'm still struggling to understand, without a tree management plan and seeing the health of the trees, why the immense tree loss, and just there's comments about some of the trees maybe not being that healthy, and I don't find, even though there's two kind of tree explainers in here, that I still understand the whole story of the trees and why we're losing this meadow. Like, not the new meadow, but the existing trees that are there in the front.
I'll perhaps give it to Mr. McStravick first.
Thank you, through the mayor. And the applicant will be able to give a more fulsome explanation, but essentially it comes down to, as was mentioned earlier, the sensitivity of the root balls of Garry Oaks when there's excavation happening nearby. And I think even more so than that is the requirement to add new vehicle driveway to create parking spaces at the rear of the Annandale House. Those are the two primary factors that are at play here. I'm sorry?
The new driveways off York Place.
Yeah, the new driveway, yeah. So But the applicant may have a more detailed explanation.
Mr. Holland?
If you wish, I'd be happy to share the actual diagram so we could speak. Would that work? Okay, let me just get this over here, find that, and let me share. So this is the previous one. This is not a fully updated one, but it should give you a sense of sort of what we're looking at here. So this is the Annandale house prior to us moving it back. We've pulled it back about 8 feet now. Through the current driveway entrance and moved a driveway over to this side. It would have taken out all these trees as well to get the vehicle over here, and that curve would have been extremely difficult to execute in this environment. If we had moved the house far back to keep all these, there would have been no private backyard. The house would have filled all of that up, and that means then cars are parked in the front yard, and so we would have had cars parking on root balls. Here for the Annandale house, likewise, if we had brought it in here, it would have still taken all of these out. And even if we had moved, again, if we would start moving the Annandale house back any further, then the rear turnarounds don't work at all for ability of a vehicle to back in, particularly now that we'll have 4 units in both of these places. So some of these red X's were actually really small. A couple of these right in here are actually really small. We moved the house back and then went and revisited them. They're really small. They're missing their tops. So some of these are not in very good. And if you read through the arborist report, you'll find a lot of them are sort of fair to poor condition. Collectively, they form kind of a mass, but when you start looking at each one of them, many of them were not actually in that good a condition. Nobody was happy with the removal of the trees. There was an enormous amount of time spent trying to figure out how to avoid this, but in the configuration as proposed to meet these other objectives, they removed them. So the response was to plant more. So the current planting program exceeds your standards, and you have pretty much the highest vegetation standards that I know of in the CRD for within a few years of development. So this proposal exceeds that, and the majority of that is with Gary oak trees. So it's a very, very significant replanting agenda here to bring back a forest and allow the housing to be there. So it was essentially a housing trees trade-off that we ended up with here in the current plan.
Please continue, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I just have trouble understanding with the previous lot lines that were not a rectangle, why the house the case, how many more trees would have been saved, or the majority of those trees in the front coming down because of the location of the house footprint or the driveway, or is it fairly equal?
Through your worship,
Mr. Holland?
Yeah, through your worship. A few more. If the lot lines had not been changed and the house was pushed back sort of where it is now, if you will, there are a handful of trees that would have been saved. I'm going to say, of the ones that have that are mature and actually have and are not really small or in poor condition, maybe a half dozen in front of the Annandale house. The significant loss of them was along the side, and again, the driveway, unless the cars are parking on the root balls in the front and parking between the house there, to get a driveway down the side, that unfortunately there was a group there. We were still able to save one of the largest ones that's kind of right on the property line. We were able to move the driveway around for that one. So that would be the key. With respect to the infill area, the lot line is not adjusted. In fact, it's maybe actually gave it a little more space than the current line is. So pushing the house back would mean to eliminate a rear garden and have cars parked on top of the trees in the front would have been the case in that, just to get a vehicle in there. I can share the drawing again if that helps.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I guess, I apologize, but I'm still just not quite understanding why with that previous more oddly shaped lot for Annandale, why the house couldn't be more in its original footprint, even if you did flip it, and the parking arrangement couldn't just be moved further back, therefore saving all of those trees, because I don't understand what we're gaining by making the Annandale lot smaller, other than the whole discussion about the different driveway accesses, and then we're only gaining a very small single-family house, and I'm just looking at the payoffs of those. So I guess my question is,
yes.
What are we really, like, why is that lot getting smaller? What are we really gaining?
Mr. Holland?
Thank you, through your worship. The discussion on that one was a decision of the owner in wanting to rationalize these property lines that were sort of fragments of the previous era here, and make that work. So if we had pushed that back, a few more of those trees would have been able to be saved. But you can see from this drawing that anything that's going to move along the north property line is going to essentially remove most all of those trees. And if we came in through the current gate, then we would be weaving all over the place to get a driveway back in there. There were a lot of different options tried. Yeah, it is a trade-off, agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Thank you, Councillor Smart. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Mr. Holland, if I could. In the original proposal, one of the things that was appreciated, I know, certainly by the Heritage Commission, was that there was a proposed designation of the 4 principal rooms. And of course, in the revised proposal, it's no longer a single occupiable unit, it's 4. Could you just comment on that layout and whether there is any opportunity in it to designate anything within those individual strata units? Is there anything in those floor plates that would be significant enough that it could be designated?
Mr. Holland.
Thank you, through your worship. Yeah, I think the reinvention of that house from the interior was certainly something that triggered a lot of discussion and what can we save. The new configuration maintains quite a number of the older features in terms of the layouts of the rooms, not all of them, but where fireplaces are located. The current fireplaces, of course, are enormous amounts of masonry, rubble masonry, largely from the original home. So in the setting up of the home, putting a new foundation on it, anything like that, regardless of what we did with it, those would need to be dismantled and rebuilt. Plus, as a strata conversion, we need to meet the building code for home warranty requirements. And so there would be quite a bit of work to update those. We haven't done a detailed inventory of mantles and every piece related to that. If that's something that council feels like they would like to direct us to, we can certainly go back and roll up our sleeves and take a look and see what kind of millwork, what kind of pieces could we potentially bring forward into the new building. The current building obviously had living rooms on the main floor, apart from the suites that are currently on the western edge, and the bedrooms upstairs. The new one likewise will do that, but we're putting 3 units in there, and so each of the grand rooms that were there are all now main living spaces, and that makes it quite much where the stairwells go and the makeup of the internal layout certainly begins to alter some of the access and egress from those rooms. But if that is something that council deems important, we certainly will be happy to roll up our sleeves and see what we can do, recognizing the significant sort of reconstruction of the interior of the building.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you. And then I have another question about the landscape plan that would apply to at least proposed lot 1 and 2, and how that would, when it's mature, how it would affect views from Prospect Place. At the moment, with nothing there's no screening at the back. You can get a bit of a glimpse of the Annandale House where it's currently situated, and I'm just wondering what happens when all that fills in. Is it basically now protected entirely and entirely screened, or actually both of those homes screened from views from the east?
Yeah. Through your worship, was that a view from the west or from the York Place?
From Prospect Place. From
Prospect
the
looking
From Prospect
up.
Place looking
Yeah.
up. Thank you for the clarification. Through your worship, the new home that is built there, as you know, and as the family's moving into it, covers a good deal of that frontage that previously was there. So there still is a view that comes up from Prospect right along the north edge of that property line. So that is where the new home's driveway is. So there is a gate there that is that is transparent. It's a rail gate. You can see through that, and you can see up. Now there's a fairly large body of oak trees in that area that have also been preserved, so they do create a bit of a screen up as you look up the hill. But you would be able to see sort of into the back area of that and of the new lot from down there. It's not as robust as it is now, obviously, because we've moved the home further west. But there is still a view up that whole north side.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Any other questions? Go ahead if you have questions. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Mayor. And I'm not sure if my questions are going to go to staff or Mr. Holland, but I think the first one might go to staff. And it's in regards to the staff report on page 2. There was just something written on the second paragraph down that I wasn't really sure of, and I was hoping I could get an explanation on. And the last part of the paragraph says, so a potential HRA bylaw would name both 1587 York Place and 1561 Prospect Place, although all heritage revitalization aspects of the proposal are limited to 1587 York. And I just wonder if you could just give me a little bit of an explanation on that, because I wasn't really clear on why that would be. Thank you.
Mr. McTravick.
Certainly, and through your worship, the reason that 1561 Prospect Place, oh, sorry, at the beginning of that paragraph it says Prospect Place, but it should say York Place. Sorry about that. The reason that that second address is included in this proposal is because of that garage structure, which is proposed to be converted to a single-family house and created on its own lot. That garage structure and that subdivision of that piece of the property is the only involvement of 1561. 1587 York is where Annandale House resides, and so that is why the heritage revitalization measures themselves are restricted to 1587. Thank you.
And then my next question would be in regards to page 5 of the report. And I noticed that, and I'm not sure if this goes to staff or to the proponent, but I noticed that it talks about the RS2 zone, and everything that staff have done has been in comparison to the RS2 zone. However, in the applicant's report, they switch between RS2, RS5, so I'm very confused, number one, as to which zone it actually is, and number two, would that make a difference to all of the different variances that are being suggested? If we're saying it's an RS2, but they're basing everything on RS5?
Mr. McTravick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the applicants do include RS5 in their zoning comparison table in their detailed building plans that are appended. But throughout the staff report, we refer to the RS2 zone because that is the actual zoning in place here. I believe that the applicants refer to RS5 in their comparison table just for convenience because the RS5 zone is maybe a bit closer to the lots that they're achieving here. So just as a point of comparison, they included that. However, the RS2 zoning is the actual zoning in place here.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Braithwaite.
Thank you. So then on page 6 of the staff report, underneath the table that you have there, it says, staff note that construction of the Annandale House predates the current zoning bylaw and the majority of the above noted zoning irregularities relate to that structure. But further, the proposed house designs are subject to change and the specific degree and number of variances required for them could potentially change if and when new house designs are submitted. So what they're asking for now could then totally change if this moved forward.
But it's a process attached to that as well, Mr. McTravick, is probably the key thing.
Yes, thank you, through your worship. And I forgot to answer the second part of your earlier question, which was that yes, the variances, as we call them, will differ depending on whether or not this was RS2 or RS5. But for certainty, this table was designed with the RS2 variances. So anyways, to your next question, this paragraph here is sort of in reference to the fact that a project like this evolves through the council approval or not approval process. As we've just seen, the application that is before you today is very different from the application that was before you December 11th. So the equivalent table in the December 11th report included different numbers for the proposed building designs and variances. And if the application is approved, then whatever building designs are approved along with it would sort of be crystallized in the HRA bylaw at that point. But this paragraph sort of points out that the project may continue to evolve as it is before the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
One
go ahead.
one more question.
Please
And then this is probably for the proponents more so. I noticed that in one of the letters and looking at some of the information in the package, it says that at least 9 of the 14 standards, the good conservation practice standards, are being violated in the aspect of the Annandale. And so I wonder, your heritage expert that you have on staff, I can't remember her name, sorry, it's...
Dr. Katie Kummer.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was a female.
Yes, Dr. Katie Kummer,
Oh, Katie,
through your worship.
Katie,
Thank you.
okay, so
Yes.
Katie is still
Yes.
okay. So, and I'm just wondering if you could speak to how she feels about that, and because it seems to me that as a heritage expert, that when 9 of the 14 standards are being violated, that might be something difficult for a heritage a person to be on board with.
Thank you for the question, through your worship. I don't know the exact list that's there. I know that we had extensive discussions with Dr. Kummer over this thing and the interpretation of the guidelines. And so I don't have that list here in front of me, what the 9 or 14 are being claimed were violated. May I clarify, this was in some correspondence that came in that claimed they were being violated? Is that, or was it?
Councillor Braithwaite?
Yes, thank you, yes, and I think that also in the actual report, there's the guidelines, and I think that I think it says it in here as well.
Okay. Thank you, Your Worship. It was a discussion of trade-offs on these all the way through this process of how to interpret them across a continuum of expression and the trade-offs between, in this case, housing and other priorities that were there. And so this was where the final result landed. I think it does meet a very significant number. Certainly this application now, I think, meets many more than the previous application did of the HCA guidelines. And it creates an interesting conundrum for us in this process of the past and the present and trying to freeze things as they were, which is really primarily the intent of a lot of the guidelines was to preserve things so that character wouldn't change a lot, and then add the whole new reality of what we're trying to do and to basically save a building that's heading into its very final chapter. So there were a lot of vigorous discussions and debates. The heritage consultant does not make the decisions on these projects. I'll go to bat for her on this one very, very aggressively. She's a fantastic person, and this has not been an easy process. She's been accosted by people. She's not been treating her well at all over this process as she fought for heritage objectives every time she turned around. But it's not her land, it's not her building, and it's not her decision. So she was a very, very robust advocate for everything heritage during this process. And in the trade-offs as we have to make between all these other heritage is one of the objectives that needs to be met. This was the optimum one that we were able to come forward with at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Holland.
Thanks, I'll save my rest of my questions for after other people talk.
Sure. Thank you. We don't have a great big line, but I'm going to go for first-time questions first. I'll come back quickly, I think. But I do have a question. Oh, Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you to the applicant, I guess it would be. There was a lot of comment from, the Heritage Commission and other interested parties in the community about that west wing that is somewhat subordinate to the main Annandale house, and it has, in this version, it has been removed. I'm just wondering if the applicant could speak to the process they went through of evaluating if it could be retained as was desired by the Heritage Commission, and what the process was as you worked through that.
Thank you, through your worship. Yes, the West Wing, as we affectionately call it. There was as much rhetoric from the West Wing TV show as there was about this West Wing back and forth, if I may make a joke here. Yeah, it's a point of contention. Within the building, every heritage consultant that we looked at, when they first, including ours, including Donald Luxton, even including, I believe, Stuart. I don't know the man, he's here, and I won't speak for him, but I have his original, the one that the review that underpinned the original designation, believed it was an addition. And I crawled through that crawl space. We have photos from 1911 that show that piece, that West Wing on it, and our heritage consultant found those photos and a fire map that showed it. But that was 10, 12 years after it was built, and we were wondering, did this get added on? It did not look at all like in fact, the original heritage consultant had a hard time actually the main building that currently faces east is definitely a British India bungalow style. But then there was this other thing appended to it, this wing that didn't match it. And everyone was sure it was an addition, and a bad addition was basically how it was classified. It's also the part of the house that's in the worst shape, and it's had the most modifications. It's a small piece of the home. We discovered originally it had 2 bedrooms, I believe. So it's a very small part of the home. It's about maybe 15%, I think, of the overall building. And so in the discussions around how to fit it in, because right now the Annandale House presents it's that rear facade, that west wing, which is very diminutive and not particularly attractive to York Place. And since all the subdivision and everything has happened around it, the goal was to swing it around so it could present its grand face to York Place again. At which point you would pretty much not see the west wing because it would be buried way in the back along with all of the aggressive plantings and the new home. You'd pretty much hardly see it at all. Given its bad condition, the discussion on the team continually came back to saying just because it's an old building doesn't mean it's good architecture, and nobody particularly liked this. And so the decision was made to stick with this desire to remove it and use a bunch of materials from that, windows, doors, millwork, etc., in the refashioning of that facade. 3 facades of the building are largely unchanged, even with the internal new 3 suites. They're keeping existing doors, existing windows. So it was sort of felt that from a heritage point of view, there wasn't a loss to remove it. Because no one appreciated it as good architecture, and the resulting building is really much more attractive as a building. And since it's going to be heavily reconstructed in order to meet new building codes, felt it was better to do that. The changes on the eastern facade, we responded. Our heritage consultant was, taking us through the statement of significance line by line on this, and said you can't lose the view to the east. This is a very important view. It's stated in the statement of significance. So the design of that facade now was rebuilt with a new dormer that is essentially the same as the other dormers to replace all the key views that were there. That was the only part that was on the statement of significance. The land itself is actually not designated. So there was quite a debate. We went back to the 1997 council minutes and spent a long time poring through them to understand what was the debate. And it was interesting to determine that in fact they had specifically not designated the land because they knew this was going to become a challenging building and wanted to provide flexibility, and that council at that time had some anxiety about the onerous reality of what to do with this building longer term, even though it was in much better shape then than it is now. It's far worse shape now. So there seemed to be a discussion on flexibility and debates around that one, and so the team selected with the designers to keep that west wing off. Instead, be put on in a new foundation and add the lost living space into the new building as a suite on the ground floor, and that was recreate that facade and bring 85% of that building forward to be able to meet York Place. So it was a strategic decision on what to do with this building, looking ahead, what we felt would be a beautiful building along that area and meet heritage guidelines, not 100%, but 85%, and trade that off against housing and some of the other objectives, which we had heard from council as important.
Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you. I do appreciate the commentary on that. With the new proposals, do we have? I'm just wondering if the applicant can speak about how this changes the requirement for blasting. We're going to a basement suite now in the Annandale house, and the secondary suites are proposed for the duplex. So how does that affect the depth of the excavation as compared to, say, the prior proposal?
Thank you, through your worship. For the Annandale house, a partial one suite that's on the eastern side there is on the lower part of the lot. There will be some blasting to level off. There's a chunk of rock that begins to emerge in that area that we uncovered when they were doing landscaping work in that area. So there will be some blasting to put in that suite. I don't believe we know what I don't personally know, I'm sorry, I don't know what the geology is on the adjacent parcel for that, but I'm presuming there will be some rock in there. They have dug down quite a bit on the new home that's going in there, and it's not like rock bluff right at the top. So I expect there will be some. Hopefully it's not that much, because I know that the neighbors there have lived through plenty of blasting and rock hammering over the years as all of this ongoing construction is. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to ask questions first, and I'll go to second time questions, if that's okay. I guess thank you for being here and for the effort that's put in here to come up with something that works. Obviously, has to work financially as well as trying to balance the financial realities and the heritage prospects and aesthetics and green space and everything else. I'm sure not an easy task. Sounds like there's been a lot of work done on this one. I guess one of the big asks last time was, or there was quite a bit of discussion around rotating, not rotating. Obviously, there's standards of not rotating, not substantially shifting an original building from its site. Can you just remind us a little, just perhaps go through the process undertaken, given that suggestion last time and the advice of Heritage to keep it in its original orientation? Why still rotate it around and face it in this direction?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, it has been a point of discussion. And there was, I believe, at our council meeting, there were a number of different options explored around rotating it only maybe halfway across the lot and things like that. The halfway option, we looked at it, and the problem is that the cost of the building to do the renovation, like I said, is probably $2.5 to $3 million just to do the renovation on the building, and the resulting value of it doesn't pay that back, and the only way to make it feasible is to build an adjacent building, and we couldn't find a way to make another building site out of that. So that was why that was stopped. The main reason, I think, was just an acknowledgement that when Annandale House was built here, these were large estates all throughout that area, very large estates, and sort of the view that was to the east of both Garrison House and Annandale House down the sloping hill to Prospect. A good deal of those houses in the area were not there at the time. This was 1898. And so we were looking at, very large, a semi-rural area as Oak Bay was just beginning to develop into this area. These were very large estate lots. And that was really the norm of what was happening there. That is obviously not the case anymore. Both of those estates have been subdivided off and built on. The surrounding areas have all been subdivided and built on. And so it felt, I think from a heritage point of view, in the discussions with the heritage consultant, when we went back and forth on the trade-off between having the house stay precisely where it is, but then have it present its worst face to the public and not actually be able to be seen and to be quite diminutive in the distance, and be looking into somebody else's backyard right on top of it, and not really a very gracious story for its next 100 years. And so it was the land itself is not designated, and I think there was a feeling from that discussion that maybe some flexibility here would be appropriate. And so the idea was that York Place is now going to be even that much grander a street. It's going to be a beautiful street with all the updated stone walls and gates and everything there, and that it would be appropriate to bring the grand entrance and the three sides of this building that are the most beautiful architecture and bring them around so they become part of the public realm rather than buried in somebody's backyard. So I think really it was a fairly simple discussion, and the heritage consultant worked with us on the trade-offs and how to deal with that. She obviously had quite a struggle between the different conflicting priorities and trying to help us adjudicate it, and we've talked with staff extensively about this as well, and it felt that the next 100 years in the presence of that home on York Place was more important than an artifact of the past left precisely where it was, because it's completely surrounded now with buildings and is not going to be really visible or a presence to the community anymore.
Thank you for the answer. And the other question, primary big picture question that I have, as I struggle with in this design, that the proposed lot 3, we have the heritage pieces and the new building, sort of shoehorned into lots, and then we have a proposed lot 3 where we have a very small building that's not utilizing the space in any meaningful way. It's just basically so I'm curious, has there been thought put into treating this as a whole more and looking at lot 3, using lot 3, maybe that building or an extension of that building being actually providing parking for the entirety of the site. So having living space there, but also parking and freeing up, because there's concerns here obviously about making more holes in the wall, of actually just sort of treating the entirety as a single development site where use the original entrance for that access, and that frees up some more of a sort of internal role, so that may free up some space for maybe that's more like a townhouse model or so forth that you can't do if you're sort of dividing into multiple lots. I'm curious if that contemplation, because that it's looking at the design, it's it's annoying seeing so much of the heritage being jammed in this one lot sort of being so underutilized. So I'll throw it over to you. It's a big question, I appreciate.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, that conversation didn't come up that much. I think the general sort of sense of the market and the value in this process was that folks would not want to park their car 2 blocks away from where they were going to spend a top dollar to buy into one of the units in the Annandale house. They're going to want their car closer. And obviously, anyone who has any disability process walking that far is going to be that much of an extra challenge. So we didn't really look at that process. That current building, as you know, is planned for really a garage use for the current tenant, and the idea of breaking it out into a potentially saleable unit would occur sometime far in the future when they no longer live there. And that's a modernist home, and so a modernist, character to that was appropriate at that time. It can be converted. It'll be a lovely single-family home, but no, we had not really, simply because of the reality of most people don't want to buy a home and then have to park the car on someone else's lot. We kept the driveways and the garages as part of each one of those individual homes.
Thank you. So just for I didn't realize that. So the proposal here is not to actually develop proposed lot 3 anytime in the near future. It's to maintain it as a driveway access for Prospect Place.
Thank you. Yes, Your Worship, that is correct. It is currently intended to be used by that tenant, or by that owner at the moment, for as long as they live there until they decide to change their mind. They're plumbing and wiring it to code for future residential use. They don't have to jackhammer out all of the they put in conduits and things in there so it can be converted in the future. It was one of the ways to offset the costs of the Annandale restoration, was to be able to then sell that, what is a garage, sell that as a second lot. So they're prepared to pay more taxes in the interim because they'll basically have 2 lots, and will ultimately intend to close that driveway and use the one off Prospect at some point if they decide to sell or move. That's how that would go. So it's essentially a future flexibility move that allows this one to sort of defer some income in order to make it worth this owner taking this on.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just turn that to staff, to Mr. McStravick on this one, just because I'm just for my clarification, because Mr. McStravick, if I may, that would be just an internal subdivision at the time of a single lot. So can I just ask, how does that fit into an HRA model, if that's just a totally separate piece, not connected to an actual development of the lot, just an existing lot that's being subdivided? I'm just trying to get my head around that inclusion of that lot in an HRA where it doesn't tie to the other development portions of this building.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The HRA agreement exists as a bylaw, which runs with the land and doesn't have an expiration date on it, if you will, and so there isn't sort of an immediate impetus to force the proponent to go through with any aspect of the project in a certain time frame, and the permission that would be granted by the HRA would stay in place until it's sort of acted upon. Yeah, does that sort of answer the question?
A little. Sorry, I'm just coursing through my brain at this moment here. It just occurs to me that the proposal is really lots 1 and 2. Because at the end of the day, the subdivision of the Prospect-based piece could be done at any time in the future. The garage converted to a house at any time in the future. None of that actually has any direct relation to the 2 lots to the north of it. There's no services being provided. There's no linkages. It's just happens to be adjacent, and it'll take this opportunity to rejig the property lines essentially.
Yeah, that's correct. The property lines are being rationalized, as the applicant put it earlier. And I believe, it's been a while since I looked at these numbers, but I believe that the lot itself, the size of it, I believe, needs the permission of the HRA to sort of exist that way. And because it exists within the Heritage Conservation Area, the subdivision of a lot is considered a change to the land, which would trigger a heritage alteration permit in the future if it wasn't involved in this.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And just to
Welcome, Mr. Green.
Yeah, just to add to that, yeah, so essentially the HRA is facilitating the subdivision. So should council approve the HRA, the applicant would be able to apply for subdivision to create those 4 lots. So legally register those 4 lots at LTSA. In relation to what's 1 and 2, then there will be provisions in the HRA that would require those things to be submitted, I guess, in relation to the revitalisation of the Annandale House as part of that agreement.
Okay, thank you. I think you've answered my questions here. I'm going to go to Councillor Watson for a second time and then Councillor Braithwaite for a second time, unless there's first-time questions. Go ahead, Councillor Watson.
That worked.
Mr. Green, can you turn off your microphone, please?
Thank you, Mayor. And this is through you to the applicant, and it's following up on your own line of inquiry about, more integrated site development and dealing with vehicles. And I'm looking at proposed Lot 2, and because it is designed, the house is designed to maximize the number of units and still provide parking. The driveway is pretty prominent in the front. My first question is, given the profile that you're showing right now for this house, which is a little lower than Annandale, how far underground is that parking? Is it a deep slot underground, or when does it actually start sloping? How far back are you from the road before that driveway starts sloping to give access to the cars underneath the house or the houses?
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Mr. Holland, give you a moment here to dig through the many plans and papers. Turn your microphone on, please.
There we go. Thank you for the question, and through your worship. I don't have a topography drawing here. I'm looking at what I'm looking at. I'm going to guess that it's probably roughly 2 meters would be probably where the ground floor of the parking lot would be. So the house, the entire parking isn't sunk in there. It's probably 2/3 of the way down. And so the slope would start, I'm going to guess, probably 2/3 of the way toward York Place in order to get you don't want your ramps to maybe a 10% ramp in that. So I'm going to guess that's probably roughly how that worked. I'm sorry, I did not bring a cross-section drawing through with me here today.
Thank you.
And but also following it up now, knowing that, I do observe there is, between the 3 proposed lots here, there is quite a lot of space taken up for circulation, which detracts from that sort of more open glade-like, the beauty of the space right now, notwithstanding that the house, Annandale's got some issues. There is this sense of openness and a meadow. And when we have 3 lots like this, and each needs these allocations for parking, it does actually start to break up that feel. And I just wonder if there is any possibility of exploring an idea that does do some consolidation of that to reduce the amount of circulation space and therefore improve the feel of the landscape and the sort of natural beauty. Even though I do understand the need to remove a lot of trees to do things, is there by some consolidation? The distances are not great in terms of walking to access cars, even across the whole frontage. So I just wonder if that's something that could be given some thought.
Mr. Holland?
Thank you for the question. The discussions in the design team as this went forward really focused on trying to minimize the presence of the cars off York Place. The sort of, I think the Heritage Conservation Area guidelines speak about these sort of grand frontages and the stone walls and the gates and this kind of character there, as well as some of that rural character. What we tried to do here was to recreate that Gary Oak Meadow to bring the rural character forward, increase a little bit of the permeability for vehicles, for people, that would increase the social character along York Place as opposed to what it is currently. And either the cars are parked in the front or they're parked in the back. And the sort of sense was that it would be better for the character and the future of the area to park the cars in the back, or in this case, in the infill down, get them down out of view, than to have them parking all amongst the trees on the root balls in the front. It was I concur with the struggle. It's a zero-sum game. This went back and forth trying to figure out ways to, what do we do with these cars? Are always a problem when you're trying to create nice places. So in the end, we went at the design of the driveway for the infill, went through a number of iterations, and in the end narrowed it a bit at the front to try and protect one more tree. I think we were able to save one more tree by narrowing it and then having it angle over at another point. Or at least the health of an additional tree, I forget. I'm sorry, that was many conversations ago, months ago. So there was, yeah, I empathize with the concern, and pulling out the pens and trying to start figuring out how to redo this. We went around a lot of circles, and in the end it was, if we were going to be able to create parking spots with these areas and not have the cars parked all across the front and in amongst the trees, then this was the best option we were able to find.
Thank you.
Councillor Watson. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm glad that you brought up the Lot 3, because that was one of my questions when I looked at the report. I saw that there was design elements for Lots 1 and 2, but nothing for Lot 3. And so I'm glad you asked that question, because now I go back to the very first question that I asked tonight, which was around the paragraph on page 2. I think I'm confused again, because now I'm kind of going, well, if it's not part of the HR the HRA or the subdivision, then what doesn't that paragraph on page 2 basically say that it is a part of the potential HRA and of the subdivision?
Sure, thank you. It is technically part of this application. I think that's the point. Mr. Abbott?
Thank you, through your worship. That paragraph on page 2, as I might have explained poorly earlier, it is trying to get across that the revitalization measures are limited to 1587. 1561 is also part of the application, essentially because that is how it was brought forward to staff, to this district. And if I could just add briefly to the previous question that came up about this, on page 5, there's that data table, and just to the question of why is it necessary for Lot 3 to be part of this HRA application, the lot size that they propose is 1,310 square meters. It is lower than the lot size permitted in RS2, so that's why the creation of this lot is necessarily part of the HRA application.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing that up, because it does say single-family dwelling, no suite. So, but from my understanding, from what Mr. Holland said, is that it's just a garage right now. There's no livable dwelling on that piece of property currently. Is that correct?
Holland?
Thank you, through your worship. It is not a habitable dwelling at the moment, but if this moves forward, they may well convert that into a habitable dwelling sooner than later. I don't know what their specific plans are for when they would do that.
Okay, thank you. I like Councillor Smart was looking at the trees as well, and I see that there's 32 trees on site, 26 are being removed, 36 are being replaced, but the 26 that are removed, I understand some of them are not in good shape. Fine, but removing 26 mature trees is a lot on a property. And then going to something that the mayor talked about, which was looking at that those lots as a whole site. I think about, in James Bay, there's a site that was developed about 30 years ago called Pinehurst. And Pinehurst was a heritage building that they turned into 9 suites within that building, and then they built 11 townhouses around it. And that fit into that area so well, and it gave so much more than what I see happening here. And to me, it would make a lot more sense to do something like that, keep Annandale in its current position, restore it to its glory, put in the suites that need to be put into it, and then use the rest of that property to put in townhouses around it. And I think you could get even more housing in than what is being proposed here. So to me, I would like to see it go back to the drawing table and have maybe a look at something like that to try and save Annandale in its current state. to save some of the trees, hopefully, and to look at even having more housing in there. So that's just kind of a comment, I guess, more than a question.
Yeah, we're drifting into comments, which is fine. I think, I mean, our two options here, just to put it back on the table, we're at 9:30, is either if council feels this has enough merit to move it forward for public comment, we can do that. If not, then I think we're probably worthwhile having comments that we're very clear about where, if, you know, if there comes, if we send the applicant away, we want to be as absolutely clear as possible as to what would be acceptable to the community, or at least meet the expectations before I went to public hearing. I don't think it's reasonable or fair. Obviously, our job is to be as clear as possible in that process. We may have enough support at this point to go to public hearing, hear the broader public input. We did intentionally set our process here to go there reasonably quickly so we could get broader public input. So I don't want to, I think that's an important part of our decision-making piece. But we also want something that has passed sort of what we would sort of find as acceptable.
We can move receipt first.
Yeah, since there's no public input, we can certainly receive the report. We can do that. Go ahead if you wish to do that.
Receipt.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. I think, I mean, I'll take a motion at this point if people wish, or we can just have a general discussion here in terms of where people are feeling. It's a little outside the normal procedural piece of this, but I'm getting from the questions that there's still some discomfort with some aspects of this, and I think maybe what would be helpful here is if we just maybe went around the table and sort of talked about things that where we individually are, before we get into any kind of specifics, are comfortable with the proposed application, where and if there's and if it's sufficiently comfortable to move it forward at this time, or at least subject to listening to other people, and then what are outstanding concerns, comfort level, and just if we go around the table maybe and just hear each other a little bit on this one. I think that might be helpful, and that might guide a process. So a little outside of our normal sort of motion debate, but I think it'll probably help us get to a more comprehensive piece. I mean, we can go as people see fit, or if I can go around the table as you. Would you like to? Are you willing to start, Councillor Green?
I will be brave. I will start. Thank you. And thank you to Mr. Holland, through you, Mayor, for all of the detail and the revisions based on feedback from the last session. Thanks to my colleagues for the questions. I think they were very important questions. All of the questions that I had were also asked. I am having a struggle with this proposal. I like the density. I really appreciate the fact that we have new housing units. I think, in fact, you could probably get more density as well. And I appreciate Councillor Braithwaite's mentioning Pinehurst. But at the at the end of the day, this municipality worked so hard to get an HCA, our first and only one. And moving this historic building and lopping off, you know, the addition that you call it, and there's some contention about that, I think really speaks to destroying the integrity of that HCA and the integrity of the heritage value that this property has.
I'm just going to ask all members of council to just address through me.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just somebody said the comments can feel pointed. So I just,
okay,
if you
sorry.
direct your comments through me, that's appreciated.
Okay, now you've broken my train of thought. But what I'd like
Talking
to...
about the HCA and the integrity
Yes,
of
the HCA is very important. It took years to achieve. We all have stated at one time or another that we support the values of heritage. We have a commission that works really hard to try and provide us the best advice possible on properties like this one. But this is a very special one, this property. It's very old. It has a huge history. And I wish that we could deal with this application by not having to move the house, first of all, by reducing the blasting. And to Councillor Smart's point about tree canopy, we are in the midst of climate change. And tree canopies in particular are very, very important to protecting all of us in our community. And I think there are other more creative options for density on the lot. In fact, I was thinking about the circle, the turnaround. If you closed that lot and closed it at the lower right-hand corner, you could in fact put in 4 covered garages at the very bottom of the lot and put suites on each of them on the top. And so that would provide covered parking near the street. There isn't a walking issue. It would still be on that lot. And it would add units of density, more rental housing, which is a really big need in Oak Bay. Now, I'm not assuming anything about below market rental, but that was raised earlier in our housing targets report. It would be wonderful if there were a couple of suites that would possibly provide below market housing. But I also realize that everything costs money, and this is a big commitment and a big development. But I cannot approve it tonight in its current form. I wish I could, because it does provide housing, and we're all talking about housing. But chasing density at the expense of compromising heritage value and the heritage designation, the HCA, all of it, I can't do that. Because I think we have an opportunity to work with this property and work with this heritage building that currently exists and still achieve density. I believe that's possible. So I guess the bottom line for me is that I know there are trade-offs when you're developing property. I know there are trade-offs when you're working with older buildings, but I'm not prepared to support the ultimate trade-off, which is to completely change the house, its footprint, its profile. And it then is not, it's not the property that was built there in 1898 and then refurbished in 1911. We have completely changed it. And so therefore the value is lost, I think. And we've had a lot of feedback about this recently and over the course of many months. And I know that residents on York are also have construction fatigue, and I understand that, and I'm sympathetic about that. But I think we can get something great on this property with a little more work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I'm going to try and consolidate comments after we've had some of these, but go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that preserving heritage values and creating a new arrangement that is financially viable is a very complex problem that needs to be solved. And I appreciate that the applicant has gone through to, it's one thing for us to sit here and come up with suggestions about how you might do it differently, but when you actually look at the site and the trees where they are and what we're coming up with a solution that gives us more housing, a nice natural environment that's preserved and retains some character defining elements is a difficult design problem. Unless there is no subdivision and no driveway at all, it's not possible, I don't think, looking at it, to save many more trees than are there right now. But I do think that there may be some opportunities to do a bit of consolidation of some areas on the site between the 3 sites, the proposed 3 lots, in order to perhaps improve to save some of the Gary Oaks. However, I don't have any issues at all with the proposal to take the house and move it and rotate it. This is no longer a home with a 2-sided frontage. That ship sailed when the property was developed on Prospect Place. So the idea of turning this around and making it face the street to create a social space and engagement with the street, I think, is quite defensible. So I don't have an issue with that, nor do I have an issue with the number of units. But what I do think is that there, from the first proposal, which gave us a bit more heritage preservation through designation, we've kind of lost something in the second one. So I'd be looking for ways to do some designation and protection of some elements inside the house that we could actually document and then have maintenance agreements for. And I also think that there's a lost opportunity by not grabbing something from this proposed Lot 3 to help with that circulation. If proposed Lot 2 did not need to have that driveway right there, we could actually save quite a few trees. And then we're going and embellish that and vastly improve that landscape by adding many more. So I think that the landscape plan is strong, but it could be stronger if we didn't have to have these independent parking arrangements for all 3 lots. And proposed Lot 3, in terms of its design and fit in this heritage conservation area, is really a bit of an oddball. But if there was some way to tweak the circulation space so there was some shared, or there was an encroachment agreement or something, I think we could do better. I'm not entirely averse to moving this to public hearing right now to get community feedback, but I don't think it's. Councillor Green is suggesting that maybe a lot more work needs to be done. I'm not so sure about that, but I think some more work needs to be done before I would present this to the public for comment.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I feel that this is getting, and I appreciate the effort, that I do recognize that there's been a ton of effort to revise the proposal, and that there's obviously been a lot of thought put into this, so that much is clear. So I don't want to undersell that. I think that, for me, a lot of the large pieces that I thought were important for redevelopment of the site are included. The strata of the main building is very important. Creating a multi-unit building out of that big heritage building is a way, in my view, that I think we're going to be moving with a lot of those larger houses in Oak Bay, and it addresses an important need and helps to retain that structure, that important house. I too am, and I do want to see an additional housing unit put onto that proposed Lot 2 in whatever format that looks like. So in terms of the amount and the volume of the housing that's proposed, I think it's appropriate, needed, absolutely appropriate to have it in that location. I am similarly of the view that some tweak of design for the housing options provided on Lot 2 is necessary. I actually believe that the setting of the house and its location, to me, is significant. So I would actually favor a design that actually kept it in its current location, retained the west wing, and used the west wing redevelop the west wing for an additional unit, so that you don't have to move it and create the quote-unquote basement suite in the proposed design. So I think that retaining that with, I guess, we're in my view, we're looking at a conversion of a large heritage house, a lot of significant structural elements. Obviously every effort will be made to keep the exterior looking like it's original, but a lot of functional components of the building will need to be changed to create that strata. So in my view, the debate about whether or not the west wing is or is not an addition, or what value it holds relative to the original building, is somewhat diminished by that, because the proposal is to reconstruct a lot of the building to accommodate a new use. So I think I feel that the setting on the lot is important, and the overview is important, as described in the statement of significance. So retaining the house in its current location, retaining the west wing, redeveloping the west wing in order to provide more housing space, I think is what I would see as a way forward. I think that a multi-unit building of some type is appropriate for Lot 2. And I recognize that there are design restrictions and design limitations caused by the trees, and I don't think it's possible to retain the full complement of trees on Lot 2 in any circumstance. So I think that is valid. But I think that the concerns and the comments that have been brought up tonight with respect to how Lot 3 and Lot 2 might interact to provide the space for circulation and parking, such that you could accommodate a more innovative or, if you will, unusual or potentially atypical housing form on Lot 2 and retain some of those streetscape trees, I think would be valuable. So, in summary, I guess, Your Worship, I would say, The conversion of the main house to strata, I think, is very valuable. I think the proposed lot 2 with housing on that is very, very supportable. You know, from in my view, I think an innovative housing style or a housing form on lot 2, even if it required a certain number of variances or, like I say, was not typical for what that lot would typically host, I think would also be supportable in order to retain trees, accommodate the necessary circulation, those kinds of pieces. So I think that there's a lot of good content in this. For me personally, it is quite close, I think, to going to a public hearing type of situation, mostly because I think it has value to allow the public to weigh in on whether or not the housing components of the conversion and the retention of the house outweigh, in the public's view, the loss of some of the actual structure through the west wing, changing the setting and losing those trees, which is a significant trade-off, but that is potentially a conversation for the greater public to weigh in on. But thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate that time.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, I think there were a couple of good things within the application, but I will go. I'll be very brief in my comments. I think that for me, I can't agree with moving the house. I think that the same owner owns both of those properties. That owner knew the situation of that house. They knew when they purchased that house with the full understanding of its heritage value and that it was a heritage property. So to think that that the situation of Annandale needs to be moved to accommodate the other house, I think that's not how we should be thinking of it. I would agree with Councillor Appleton's comments around keeping the house in the same space and using that west wing as the additional unit rather than going underneath into a basement. So no moving the house. Low blasting would be my preference on this site. The tree canopy is important. I understand that certain trees have to go because they're damaged, and in all properties that we have, sadly, we do have to lose some trees. So I'm not tied to all of the trees, but I think it's important that we try and save as many of those trees as possible. And again, I look at the density I look at the 3 lots as a whole, and I really would like you to go and look at Pinehurst and see what Pinehurst did with that property, because that is something I think could be a lovely model within that area on that lot. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, just going to ask comments through to the chair, not directly to the applicant. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you to you, Chair. So in looking at this application, what's missing for me is just the celebration of Annandale being that jewel. And I was not originally against the concept of rotating the house, and I still am not against the exploration of that. But in rotating it, I don't see that the test of that passed. It doesn't, in rotating that, it seems to create more problems than solutions. And I love the idea of looking at this as a more comprehensive site. I just think there's so much opportunity here. If you're looking at the original lot lines to do something really creative and really wonderful, there's Councillor Braithwaite has mentioned one particular project. There's many in town. There's another one by Abkhazi Garden in Victoria, where the Heritage House becomes the jewel of the whole development. And I could see like a lovely shared laneway between Annandale and Lot B, where there's a more creative, like triplex townhouse kind of development. There's just so much potential to celebrate Annandale, and I don't feel like the project in its existing form is celebrating that building right now. I just wanted to comment briefly that I appreciate the change of the flat roof for Lot 2. I just wanted to say that I don't appreciate the faux heritage aspect, and I feel like that goes against the guidelines for historic places to mimic a heritage building in a heritage conservation area. So I would actually be in favor of, you know, if it was council's will to send this to public hearing, but my concern in sending it to public hearing is that it won't be embraced by the community. And my goal with this is I really would like this project to move forward. So my comments are that I feel like there's so much opportunity to do better, recognizing the extreme puzzle that this site is. But my concern in sending it to public hearing would be to actually, in the long run, delay the process. Because I do see that this is going to be a great project once we get a couple more things right. And again, appreciative of the net new units, but let's actually succeed at the heritage piece.
Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and interesting discussion. I can't say that I could find this acceptable in some ways as it's presented, given that the Annandale, we talk about it being a grand residence, but it has been in a very sorry state for far too many years. And so for a much loved property, it has not displayed any of that love for quite some period of time. And I've been personally in the circumstance of having to build housing around a central house, and there are complications to it. But I'm not totally opposed to turning Annandale if it could have been left in its existing position, and the west wing in some way modified so that perhaps we didn't have to do the blasting to get the suite in, but could use that in a more suitable way to form the fourth unit. I think that would have been preferable. And I think that we're in this, and I don't want to question whether the marketability or has been thought out and whatnot, but we've organized it so that the parking then will be behind it, so that the street Annandale can show from York Place. But I wonder really if that will be that important to that property or not, because I think that the parking as it's shown along here, and even the duplexes that with the secondary suites, with the underground parking, there are too many houses in Oak Bay where they don't use the underground parking. That simply becomes other living space. So whether the cars go down there or not, and it's very difficult to understand this because you don't see the side elevation drawings to understand what that is. I don't think that I see a strong benefit in retaining heritage elements within Annandale House. The reason I say that is because this will be private dwellings. It's not open to the public. And so while it's admirable to try to protect those heritage aspects, I question the real value of that longer term to the community. If it's a public building where the public enters it and they see those components, then perhaps there is a real value to the community in protecting that longer term. But these will be private residences. And in fact, in the future, if we retain green space at the front of the lots along there, we may not even see the buildings that are more to the rear. And York Place also is a street that dead ends in a gated community. So it's not like it's a walk-through street. It's not quite the same aspect as Prospect is. So I think this is actually getting much closer to what we perhaps need this to become in the community, and to try and go back to the drawing board and reconfigure it all around Annandale could be a lot of work. On Lot 3, the building that is already partially constructed, I would hate to see us try to say, well, let's demolish it and rearrange all of the properties so that we can get that on. So I think it is reasonably close that if it was the will of council, I would let it go to public hearing. I know that there are members of the community certainly that are strong supporters of the heritage aspect, and justifiably so. Unfortunately, we're in a position in this community where most of our heritage buildings are private residences. It's hard to protect them long term, and we don't have funding to add to this that might protect it in a more meaningful way to the heritage supporters. But there are also people in that area that are getting fatigued with the ongoing process of this and would like to see the community redeveloped, and so that they can get on with their lives and bring new vitality to the street. And I think we're close to that, so I wouldn't want to see it dragged out too much further. I think that if we could have a little more consideration for leaving Annandale in the position it's in, and perhaps a reasonable way to convert, instead of having an underground basement suite, convert that into the fourth living space, then I would live with the other proposals that are put forward for lot 2 and 3. And the loss of trees is definitely, I mean, that is something that will affect the community on a longer term, because Gary oaks do not grow very quickly, and for new trees to be planted, and certainly I appreciate that from the applicant that there is the willingness to plant those, but these homes could very well be almost at the end of their useful life before those Gary oaks reach full maturity. So the added vegetation will be good, but the loss of trees is extensive, and that will make a large difference. But York Place is not a through street. Members of the community, other than are directly on the street, will probably not even see it. And I also know that living on a lot that has natural Gary oak soil in it, I have to go around my lot and pull out about 50 little Gary oaks annually, or I too would have a forest that would get out of control. So, these are not necessarily, this isn't a landscape that necessarily was planted to go with Annandale. It could have developed just naturally with the Gary oaks that were there. So I think we're very close. Maybe just something to allow Annandale in its present position, and then the rest of it I'm all right with. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just noticing, cognizant of time.
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting by 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. I do want to wrap this up in that time frame as a courtesy to everybody here. I did ask to stretch on the hour, but I'm going to push through this one actually, just to see if we can do it. My comments, I think all the comments that were made, yeah, not easy. I appreciate the work that's been done here to try and find that balance. I'm probably a little out of sync with some of the members of council, and that's okay, but my general feeling of this one is, I think that the house itself can be reoriented. I do believe that the original sort of orientation over the ocean, facing that direction. I know that the entrance was always off of York Place, but it had much more land to kind of absorb. So either rotated 90 degrees or 180 degrees, but something that kind of brings that sort of nicer facade back into the public realm, to my mind, is not in alignment with heritage best practices, instead of the big quotes, but I think it's in line with, with design best practices and in keeping with the HCA overall. I do want to just acknowledge here, we are talking about one of the very, very few designated heritage houses or buildings in Oak Bay. We have very few of them, and it does take a slightly different tact than just an old house or a heritage registered house. I think there's some obligation here that sits with the designation as a protected house, and it is protected on where it is to do that. So I don't say that lightly. I think that, but I do think that if it serves the broader purpose of an HCA, I'm comfortable with it being rotated appropriately. The west wing, I have mixed feelings about. I think that I would prefer to keep it, but I also think that if there was substantial other thoughtful development, I'd be okay with it going. I do wish this was being looked at as sort of, I mean, even with the minimized lot sizes of cutting it back in alignment with the back of the Lot 3 building, it's still over 40,000 square feet. It's a substantial piece of property that, if looked at holistically, should take more than a townhouse and a building on it, and be able to keep that. And certainly given that the back of the lot is really almost completely tree-free, would free up a lot of consideration. I think I have some clarity as to how this has come about, and not including that in that sort of comprehensive development. But for me, that would just be the obvious choice, is to include that Lot 3 properly within the HRA and incorporate it. 'Cause I just think it would solve so many of the problems. I do note the applicant's comments about people are not willing to walk a long distance, and that's absolutely fair. But we are talking about the combined lot 1 and 2 frontages is 120 feet. It's not a massive distance. In fact, it's shorter than I think the most of the lots depth in Oak Bay. So people are not that unused to walking that kind of distance between a garage and a household. If that was considered as part of that overall piece. I do think we have some obligation to consider, to make sure there is some parking here. York Place is a very difficult place to park. It's not an easy place to sort of take on additional density unless we can consider. Granted, it can use some less parking just because of its location, but there's still going to be a demand for parking on there. And those are sort of levels of detail that I would trust to the applicant to kind of contemplate in their pieces. I do want to see the trees protected on here. Again, looking at this as the sort of next 100 years, next 150 years for the site, I am not averse to losing some trees as long as the overall tree replanting is both sensitive. And I did actually appreciate the thoughtfulness of the landscape design that was put forward here. I have no doubt that it would look good in the end of the piece of this. But I do think that the lot can handle, again, with if it was taken as a whole, could handle a different approach to this that would work better. I mean, the Annandale sitting on a lot largely the same width as the width of the new building, same as the width of Lot 3 doesn't seem proportional. I really appreciated Councillor Smart's comments about the celebration of this as a heritage building. I think there is some in this, and I guess one of the reasons I'd be supportive of turning it is that I think, to showcase that in a way that showcases the best of that building into the public realm, makes other development on the site, subservient to it and not interfere with it. Its pieces. So and that, the comment that liking the density is true, but we also need to succeed at the heritage portion, because that's sort of the unique factor in this, is the heritage portion. I don't consider the Lot 2 design currently as faux heritage. I think it's just a sort of traditional housing design, but it's not trying to fake being something else. I don't mind that. I don't even mind the modern design of the Lot 3 in an isolation in terms of heritage. I know it's commented in here that it's out of keeping with the HCA, but it's not really true. I think the concern was the building adjacent to the designated heritage building should not be so dominant in visual effect that it supersedes the building next door. So the building adjacent being in the HCA is intended to accommodate a wide diversity of buildings, modern and traditional. So those are my thoughts. I'm struggling with this one to move it forward as it is. I will say that, just because I think it could be more. But I also recognize the comments made here that it could benefit from some additional public input if we feel it's close. I'm not quite there that it's close yet, but I will defer to the wisdom of the body. if someone does feel that way, it may be simplest to have a motion with a staff recommendation to draft an HRA and have a public hearing scheduled. I'm assuming that's a couple of months away, though. Is that correct, for the HRA to be drafted up and then a public hearing to be scheduled, Mr. McTravick?
Yeah, a couple of months sounds realistic to have the HRA drafted and the bylaw prepared for council, and then public hearing. Yeah.
Right. So I guess the contemplation of this body is, is it realistic to consider that to be, good enough to go to public hearing? Because it does not speed up the process if it's not. If we're just going to get some additional public input, that may not be the fastest route. It may be faster to send it back with specific asks. So I'll just leave that to the body. So if someone wishes to move the recommendation here, we'll take that. We can debate it and consider that as a process. If there isn't, then we'll go back to the one.
I will move the staff recommendation that council directs staff to proceed with the current proposal by drafting an HRA bylaw and scheduling a public hearing. I think we have to have a conversation around this, and so I'll put the motion on the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Is there a seconder for that? Okay. No seconder. So back to this table for direction to go forward, moving forward. I think that what I would like to see here, if I could, is some resolution here that provides some clear guidance. And I think that's quite difficult if I'm going through my notes of what I heard around this table. I might put Mr. Holland on the spot here, and I apologize. You've heard the comments around the table. Some are okay with moving it, some are okay with rotating it, some are not. Some would like more care and attention to the trees, some are okay with the tree plan. I appreciate what we've said around this table so far has not provided a great deal of guidance. And so I might just turn it back to you, given what you've heard here. Are there consistent themes that maybe you'd like some clarification on, or, and honestly, I'll give you an opportunity just to make some comments at this point as well. Because I think your insight into what's been talked about here would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Obviously, lots of things going through my head here, given all the months of work and all the different discussions that occurred.
Yeah.
But first, I'd like to thank you, each of you, for giving us a detailed feedback of what you were thinking, because there's a lot of choices here and a lot of trade-offs, and I appreciate that. Looking at the list, it does remind me a lot of what was said the first time around too. And so we made some progress. I think you see a lot of work went into making some progress, but obviously we're not there yet, obviously. In terms of solutions to this, I wouldn't want to guess at what those are going to be, because every time we make one tweak, something else, like this thing is a giant spider web, and you pull on one and something else moves and it changes and it twists. I think we need to take your direction and go back and have a sober conversation at our end to determine what else might be possible. I think there's a few themes here that are emerging that are maybe clearer than last time, so I can take those back and have that discussion with them as well. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have a really quick and simple response of, oh yeah, we'll go do that and that'll solve all the problems, at least that I think will work back in the design room. So let me take this direction back. I've taken 5 pages of notes here, so I've taken pretty much every point every one of you said. I'll go back and we'll look through that and sit down with the team again and see what we can do.
So I'm just wondering procedurally here, because I don't feel like we've given, I think we've all had a good, thoughtful discussion about it. We've contemplated this, but we're not, there's no clear themes coming out of this piece of this. So procedurally here, is there any mechanism by which we might bring this back to this table maybe at the next meeting and allow the applicant to have some of that sort of takeaway conversation? Maybe we ask to do that as well. And just, I'd like to see a motion come out of this table that gives some very clear direction. I think that we're a little bit muddled on this piece, so I don't know. I'm looking for a process here that'll move it forward more than it is right now. Actually, before I go to you, Councillor Green, I'm just going to take if there's any advice from staff on any process here that might. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the applicant's job to come back with an application that we have to contemplate. I'm just trying to see if there's anything here that we can do to help tease that out a little bit.
Okay.
Well, I'll see if there's a.
Yeah, through your worship, I think as you indicated, the more clear that council can be with the specific points of improvement, the more useful it'll be for the applicant and for staff to work with the applicant, especially if council can, share those thoughts with some degree of unanimity, so it's more actionable. I think what we heard the applicant say was that he's hearing some of the same feedback as we heard last time in December, and probably there's a desire to find something really concrete and actionable that they can work with. In terms of this specific suggestion that you floated of having them come back at a future meeting with some ideas or something that council can discuss, I'm not sure procedurally what the best way would be to achieve that, but perhaps somebody else at the table has something to offer. I'm not
No,
sure.
I think if that's the process, we would do what we did last time, which is send it back with some comments and then have the applicant come back again. So I have Councillor Green and then Councillor Appleton.
Yeah, and respectfully, I don't think we're muddled. I think I've heard a majority of council members say they would like the house to be retained in its current position, that they don't want it rotated and the back end taken off. Three other of my colleagues have said that clearly. I think that another colleague said that they would like to look at this as a more comprehensive development site with more circulation. Excuse me, that we celebrate the site. So I honestly don't feel we're muddled. I just feel that I'm not a designer personally, and also that we value the site as a heritage site, and that the house is valued as a designated heritage home. So I think there's some clarity here. I honestly don't feel we're muddled. Thank you.
Thank you. I wouldn't use the word muddled. I was just, we have a diversity of opinions that are on this table. Councillor Appleton,
Thank you, Your Worship. So I would test the will of council, and council can give me some feedback on this. So I would make a motion that Heritage Revitalization Agreement HRA 00010 be referred to staff to work with the applicant to explore design options with respect to the following. 1. Retention of Annandale House in its current location and redevelopment of the West Wing. Second, exploration of further possible housing form options for Lot 2. And third, evaluation of how proposed Lot 3 might be better integrated into the overall redevelopment plan. Absolutely, Your Worship. So move that Heritage Revitalization Agreement 00010 be referred to staff to work with the applicant to explore design options with respect to the following. First, retention of Annandale House in its current location and redevelopment of the West Wing. Second, exploration of further possible housing form options for Lot 2. Third, evaluation of how proposed Lot 3 might be better integrated into the overall redevelopment plan.
moved and seconded. Do you wish to speak to it? I think the language is fairly clear.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I wouldn't purport that this captures all of the comments made by my colleagues, so I wouldn't speak to what they're speaking to, but certainly we're talking about the first component of this relates to whether or not the house is retained in its current location or not, whether or not the West Wing would be redeveloped as an alternative to moving the house overall. So I think that's an exploration there. The second component is with respect to other potential layouts or concepts for housing for Lot 2 that could potentially be a little bit more subordinate to the Annandale house and make more creative use of the space. And thirdly, I've heard some comments and I concur that Lot 3 is not wholly integrated into the redevelopment plan for the original lot here being subdivided. So whether or not that could be considered in some way.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Are there discussion on that motion? Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Appleton, for doing your best here to move us forward. One thing I didn't hear there, and I think that particularly if the motion or the idea or the direction is to leave Annandale House where it is that I wonder if really we should be talking more about a campus. This is presented as 2 lots, and I think that the fact that they are presented as 2 lots creates some design challenges because they're being dealt with as separate entities. But if they were a campus, it opens up some opportunities. So I can see that if we, that direction might, to broaden this, to create some more campus-like setting, leaving the house where it is, may provide some opportunities. But if we're still talking about 2 lots, I'm not so sure we get there. So I wouldn't want to send the applicant away with something that became an impossible dilemma. So that's just a comment. I don't know where to go with that, but I'm throwing it out there.
So I'm going to try to clarify that, because I took in the motion here that Lot 3 be explored to be integrated more into the planning, that opened that option up without requiring it. So I guess that's maybe what I suggest as piece of it, but I might move to the mover of that motion just to sort of see if that's.
Just to clarify, we're shown this as 3 lots, 1, 2, and 3, and I think the fact that 2 is separated off and then has to meet its own requirements as separate strata units creates complexities. If it was one large lot, if 1 and 2 were actually just 1 lot, there may be more degrees of freedom to do some things that would be meaningful. I also think Lot 3 needs to be integrated better into this, but I'm not sure we're going to get one whole lot out of this.
I'll go back to the mover just to make sure that I can hear from your clarification, your expectations on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I would say that that would be consistent with my intent as far as making this motion. I think the combination of Lot 3 being more holistically considered in the overall redevelopment and thinking creatively about what the building, the structure proposed for what is currently proposed as Lot 2, but not necessarily a Lot 2 or Lot 2 in its current layout. We have creative people here that are that know a lot more about the design aspects than I do. So I'm sure that they can work with a combination of a creative design for currently proposed Lot 2 and integrating Lot 3 into coming up with some potential design options.
You, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. A comment and a question. Comment would be, I do like the way the motion has been broken down so that I feel that it gives the applicant the option to go for that campus design, which I hear a lot of us being interested in, but also to potentially do a project that doesn't take a lot more work, that really looks at those first 2 lots, but really talks to those key pieces that we talked about around the table. My question is, in the way, and this would be through you, Mayor for Councillor Appleton, in the way you phrased the building in the same position, I'm not sure if I got the wording right, is it open to the fact that it would be in the same footprint and rotated, or absolutely not rotated because it just wasn't 100% clear to me? Because I did hear around the table that perhaps half of council was open to it being rotated, and so I just wanted the clarification of what the intention was with your motion.
Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Smart. I would say that I did not intend that the first part of this motion would preclude any option as far as relocation or movement. So, I definitely heard my colleagues making comments potentially in support of moving the Annandale house if it achieved the proper outcome, achieved an appropriate outcome. So I would be clear that that particular piece would not exclude any particular option as far as retaining it in its current location or moving it. It's an options analysis in my view.
Can I just go into a quick straw poll here of hands? Who here is opposed to rotating or shifting the building in that piece? Okay, it's not a vote. I'm just saying. So a couple. Okay, so I think your interpretation was reasonable. That there's at least a substantial portion of this that is willing to do that if it makes a larger piece. No, it's definitely not calling a question or anything. Just trying to get a sense. Councillor Patterson.
Yes. So then, just for clarification on this, so what we have said was, as as opposed to what we have been presented with, which many of us saw benefits to, that we could be looking at potentially the lot that Annandale is on, and then lot 2, potentially becoming a total strata development. And as such, then, it could potentially lead to a loss of more trees. And I would just like clarification on if that results in a loss of more trees, if that is also acceptable to members of council.
I'm not sure I guess I can't really put that question to council. You might want to consider an amendment to give some direction as related to the loss of trees, if that's something you wish to do. Other than that, I think what I heard from the applicant was they're trying to retain as many trees as possible in whatever design they come back with.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that because it does, if you go to a total strata development, it changes certainly the opportunities, but it does bring in other complexities because you often use more of the perimeter, so.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hands. Thank you, Councillor Appleton, for putting this here. I'm supportive of this. I think, especially with the option of the consideration of moving the house. I've already said my piece in terms of where I stand with that. I do think that this would benefit from a more of a campus approach. I use your terminology, Councillor Watson. I think also the other thing we really haven't talked about today, but is a key piece for the HCA. So not so much the heritage retention of the building, but of the HCA was the preservation of the rock walls. And the way this is laid out currently, there's a lot of openings put into that rock wall, which I have significant problems with, a concern about. I think it goes against the spirit of the HCA. And so, again, considering it's more of a campus model, it might be able to utilize the current openings more effectively. So it's just another sort of contemplation. So as I understand it right now, I'm supportive of the motion that's on the floor. Any other debate on the motion that's in front of us here? Not seeing it. Oh, Councillor Smart, second time.
If it's appropriate, just to add a comment that I heard a little bit around the table, but it isn't yet addressed in this motion, but I think it's more of a comment, would just be around prioritizing the heritage and the trees over the car-centric design. That it feels like it's very weighted towards the convenience of the car right now.
It's not reflected in the motion right now, but that's I think a fair comment that you can make. I think as I pointed out, I think the parking is an issue because it attaches the value of the property, right? So I think there's that sort of balance of the pieces of what can be sold and not sold in that. I'm ready to call the question, I believe, at this point. Councillor Green, go ahead before I do.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate Councillor Appleton's attempt to bring some further clarity and to condense this very challenging situation. But if that is going to, if that leads to contemplation of moving the house and rotating it and reciting it, I can't support the motion. I just can't. We talked about the importance of preservation of a rare designated home, and I understood. I guess I heard a completely different thing. I understood that most people were not in favor of rotating the house, or at least more than two of us. So, no, I won't be able to support. I think it's a good motion, but if that's what it contemplates ultimately, I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. That is, as I understand it, the contemplation at this point that it can allow for that. It does not require it, obviously, and there may be some cost benefits to keeping it where it is. But I will note that the current lot lines, as contemplated, they're within the boundary of the current house, so they would have to be adjusted if that was to stay in its current position. But again, those are details I think to be dealt with by the applicant, not here. So I appreciate that comment. If you're going to vote against it, I understand the clarification of why. Coming back to this table, motion is live on the floor. All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Just have the motion read again, please.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Councillor Appleton, if you don't mind. I did not write it down with enough words to repeat it.
Very good. I will assume that Ms. Plouffe will correct me about if I say something different this time. So the motion is that Heritage Revitalization Agreement 00010 be referred to staff to work with the applicant to explore design options with respect to the following. First, retention of Annandale House in its current location and redevelopment of the west wing. Second, exploration of further possible housing form options for Lot 2. And third, evaluation of how proposed Lot 3 might be better integrated into the overall redevelopment plan.
Is that good, Councillor Watson?
Just a comment, we had a discussion that we agreed that moving it and rotating it were open, but I don't hear that that's not actually what the motion says. The motion says to retain it in its current position and retain the west wing. So I can't quite, I'd love to be able to vote for that, but it doesn't quite say what I thought we intended. Is it the design options? I think it is? Okay. As long as that's clear to everybody. Just don't make it people an impossible task.
And I hear what you're saying, Councillor Watson and Councillor Green, but I feel that the house shouldn't be moved. However, this does say design options, so I will support it based on those two words, design options.
Thank you. I think this is walking a fine line of trying to give some direction, but recognizing what a difficult thing to do, and there's going to have to be some work and flexibility on this to just have any chance of success. Okay, I'm ready to call the question, I believe. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Green opposed. That motion carries.
I'm going to extend the meeting by 15 minutes.
Oh yes, we have some bylaws to get through and applicants to pack up. It won't take us too long, I don't think, to get through the next pieces. Is there anything else coming out of this piece that we want to touch on before we go? I don't think there's any other motions arising. Mr. Holland and team, thank you. We move to item number 10, and we'll get through this fairly forthwith, I believe. I need someone willing to, actually, perhaps we need an introduction here. Is there, is Mr. Rennick online? Is Mr. Rennick doing the, okay. Welcome back to the meeting, Mr. Rennick. I think you're just doing a brief introduction of these, or is it Mr. Payne or Mr. Rennick? He's unmuted himself. Welcome back, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Mayor. This is following on from a decision that was made during financial plan deliberation. Council had initially provided direction to create a $300,000 line item in the budget funded through taxation to deal with the additional costs on servicing projects when contaminated soils are encountered. Council decided to decrease that amount to $225,000, and as a result, staff are proposing that the fixed fees for water, sewer, and storm drain services be increased by approximately $625 per service connection. And I have more that I could say, but I will keep it brief and I will take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is, we had the long discussion at the table, so thank you for the clarification tie-in back here. So this does require some bylaw changes, so I just perhaps turn to council to start their reading process, and we would debate after second meeting. Oh, it is subject to public input. We don't have a lot of people online. I might just ask if anybody is online with any of the next four items, 10.1 through 10.4, all related to financial plan and the actual rates that go along with that financial plan. Director Payne is online. Right. Okay.
I'll move receipt.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Move receipt for 10.1. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
And I'll move that water rate bylaw number 3317, 1981 amendment bylaw number 4864, 2024 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. This is the point that we have any debate or discussion. And go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I won't support this bylaw in its current form because, as I've stated to council, I'm not in agreement with passing along the cost of this soil remediation piece to the landowner, because I do feel it represents a downloading. So this is essentially the enacting bylaw to create that extra cost for the landowner. I don't agree with the context that it's being brought forward in, so I'm just not going to be able to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Appleton. Any other discussion on this piece? I should state, because I did speak in support of that stance at the financial planning piece, I will still support this. I think in the context when we get to bylaws, I'm okay with supporting the bylaws that have gone through the overall piece of it, but I agree that that's a reasonable stance to be taking on that one. But if anybody's confused by, supporting the principle and having the debate. So first and second reading, any other discussion? All those in favor? And those opposed? Councillor Appleton opposed.
And I move that water rate bylaw number 3370, 1981 amendment bylaw number 4864, 2024 be read a third time.
Did I get that right? 3891, 1996 amendment bylaw 4863? Is that what you said? Okay.
I said 3370.
Oh, third time, sorry. Okay,
For the
sorry.
third.
Okay, my apologies. I checked off a thing we didn't call a question on. So it's moved for a third time. All those in favor? And those opposed? Councillor Appleton opposed.
And I move that public sewer bylaw number 3891, 1996 amendment bylaw number 4863, 2024 be read a first and second time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Councillor Appleton opposed.
And I move that public sewer bylaw number 3891, 1996 amendment bylaw number 4863, 2024 be read a third time.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None, one opposed. Councillor Appleton. 10.2, we have 2024-2028 financial plan bylaw. Mr. Payne, do you wish to provide a quick overview of this?
Thank you, Worship. I'll be very brief. The financial plan bylaw before council today represents decisions made through the budget deliberation season. In order to achieve our statutory deadline of passing the bylaw before May 14th, we'll need to give the bylaw 3 readings today and final adoption in early May. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. So moved to receipt and seconded. Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Want to keep going? Councillor Braithwaite?
Move that the 2024-2028 financial plan bylaw number 4860, 2024 be given first and second readings.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? That carries.
And move that the 2024 to 2028 financial plan bylaw number 4860, 2024 be given third reading.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Moving to 10.3, our tax rates bylaw. Ms. Latkin, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, members of the council and staff. I just present tax rate bylaw 4861. This bylaw levies taxes for our general municipal taxes as well as the required levy for the CRD and CRHD. Also, this bylaw will levy tax for the business improvement area. Thank you.
Thank you. We sat through a long meeting to do that introduction.
Move receipt.
Move for receipt. Is there a seconder? Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
I move that tax rates bylaw 2024 number 4861 be given first and second readings.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Thank you so much for being here, in case there were questions. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
I move that tax rates bylaw 2024 number 4861 be given third reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Those will all come back for adoption at the next meeting. 10.4, the last item on this agenda, Boulevard frontage tax rates. Ms. Latkin.
Yes, this Boulevard tax bylaw number 4866 is aims to recover a portion of our Boulevard maintenance costs. It doesn't benefit any specific property or abut a specific property, but it does aim to recover 75% of our costs. At this time, it would bring taxes from $256,000 to $268,000 with budgeted expenses around 69%. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Move receipt.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
Move that the Boulevard Frontage Tax Amendment Bylaw 2024, number 4866, be given first and second readings.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
Move that Boulevard Frontage Tax Amendment Bylaw 2024, number 4866, be given third reading.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries.
Move adjournment.
Seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. We stand adjourned. 10:30.